Post in 1992. So we recently celebrated our 31st birthday in March. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to start with my backstory, because it'll give you a good idea of where I come from, and a little bit about the journey, and also the kind of theme that runs throughout my publications. So my journey as a publisher started with being a civic activist with the locals residents association. I was managing a newsletter at the time for the association. And as you can imagine, when you're a volunteer, then you're overwhelmed because everybody expects you to do everything. And I realized, hey, we need a local paper here. We needed a formal voice. And that's how I started Globe in 1992. Now, remember, this is a critical time in the history of South Africa with our first democratic elections was held in 1994. So me, fresh out of college and wanting to change the world, this was an appropriate vehicle for my own passion to do that. So very important to mention is the fact that it was at that time, my Globe Post, or at that time called Southern Globe, was one of those alternate media. So we were speaking up against the injustice of apartheid. Apartheid meant Group Areas Act. I think you guys are familiar with that. So you were shoved as deep away in the Bundus, away from the economic hubs of Johannesburg, the northern suburbs, a lot of the places where we worked at. So yeah, so that's how Globe Post was able to play a critical role in informing, educating, creating an awareness of what residents' rights were all about. It's the same theme that I've carried through even to this day, as I stand here in 2023. Right? What I loved about the fact that I was at that time, I was able to influence change and bring about good for the greater good of the oppressed. And it was a fine line between being an activist, a news editor, a journalist, and a community leader. So just some background again. 1992, being a publisher of color meant our biggest problem, which remains even to this day, the lack of advertising support from the people that really matter, that can add to the bottom line, the big revenue streams. So I was getting very little support from the municipalities, from the corporates, from all big business, even from government. Okay, but I was up for the fight because I was much younger and I had all the energy, and I was ready for that. So I used to walk the streets of Sandton, looking for ad agencies, armed with my paper under my arm, trying to tell them what I was doing. I was doing this amazing work, but nobody listened. So somehow all of my efforts, somebody saw it somewhere, and I ended up doing a whole lot of TV interviews, radio, morning talk shows, talking about the plight of the community, independent community publisher, and trying to secure advertising from the big advertising agencies. And in 1996, Cosmopolitan South Africa picked up the story. They published it, and I ended up being selected as one of the Cosmo Mover finalists for that year. I didn't win, but it was a huge branding for smaller community media. And during that time also, I was also a founder member of the AIP. I mean, I remember sitting back in the day and putting together that constitution, okay? And one of the key things that came out of here was the fact that, like all journalists, Cosmopolitan SA did research on the number of Black publishers across the continent. And I'm so happy to say, now, I even forgot about this, is that I was one of 7 publishers of color in Africa at the time. Okay, so then in 2006, Sol Plaatje Media Institute did a study of successful community newspaper publishers. So I was Southern Globe was one of the 6 that featured as a role model for sustainable media, community media, even at that time. So now as I stand here, it's like we've come full circle. However, the advantage we have is that there's a whole, I mean, we're sitting here, we've heard the speakers. It's such a, was it Andy that said the other day, he wished he would have been younger and a journalist now, because we have this whole, it's like almost having a banquet of, it's like a banquet of opportunity that each one of us here and back home we can grasp, we can learn, we can change how we're doing things, and to be creative, to think outside the box, to be agile and embrace these opportunities to be the successful publishers that we were, that we can be. It's very important to know that it's like when I look at this and when I wrote this thing, it was as though it was the start, it was the golden age, and it's like the winter of discontent is where we're at now. Okay. Okay. So that's just a timeline of my publications. So Globe Post. Okay. So I'm going to go there first. So Zeno Media or Zeno Projects is a family-run business. Again, we're based in the deep south of Johannesburg. So Globe Post 1992. And then you've got the other publications, 2012, Orange Farm News, 2015, you've got Walkerville and Savannah City Times. I also launched Tembisa Times in 2021, but that was basically, I think, was very brave of us because this was around COVID, but it lasted about 8 months. And then we were carrying the costs of that. It just didn't make business sense. So I stopped that. And so we've got Facebook here. So we've also taken that stream where we've got Facebook, and we've got Southern Gauteng News has taken off very, very well. We started that earlier this year, in March of this year. So that's doing very well. But all of these publications, these three are print, that's Facebook, and that's digital, also digital, right? This part here is where I'm at now. So I'm poised for change in terms of my office and my business operations. One of the things I'm very keen about is passing the baton on. I've got 31 more years of experience as a publisher, as a journalist. And I just think it's time that I shared my skill sets. I share the challenges that we've had, because there's no need for an emerging publisher to have to go through all of the struggles that I've had to endure to get to where I am now. So I would like to be able to partner with whoever is able to do so, get in the grants, get in the funding, and get a pool of people together where we can actually create a development academy. It's probably being done, but not so much aimed at who we are. I dabbled a bit in the PR and media agency. We're still doing that. I ran an election campaign for a friend of mine. It was last year, and that was the full branding, the gazebos, the everything, managing the teams. The full aspect of running an election campaign. It helped that I had been a candidate the year before, so I knew exactly what was needed to be done, and I made a good amount of money with that. So that would be so it's not just that, but also perhaps an agency where we're getting in the advertising for the smaller media. Yeah, so that's that, and this is where we're here now. The fact that I'm part of the sustainability initiative through the IIP and through yourselves, which means that the possibilities, and these are green shoots for me, that's why I've got it in green as well, is because we're poised for a whole lot of amazing things that can happen. Again, the golden age that's coming to us. And I'm also excited to be part of this, of this time. All right. Okay, so this is my A team. I didn't realize it until I was listening to the speakers here, and then this is actually succession at work, because back in the day when I first started the paper, it was just me and my PC. It was me and a driver. For many years, we did everything, putting the stories together, distributing the newspaper, running around for invoices. And my initial 5 months of launching Southern Globe, now Globe Post, we would drive every month end to Durban, to Stanger. A friend of mine owned Coastal Weekly and Stanger Weekly and all of that. And I think I would even write the stories down. So I would go down to Stanger, he'd put everything together. And the reason was month end was because my late husband would get paid on the 25th. So then I had enough money to go and to pay the printers. I would phone from Stanger. I'd phone all my clients, guys, please approve this ad. He'll edit and put the paper together, and we'd drive up with a CD, I think at that time. And I don't even know if it was a CD, because I remember working with, Des would probably remember, those light tables were cutting and sticking things onto that. Yeah, I mean, even my domestic work, if I could have got the cats to help me, I would have done it, because it was so much of work. But thankfully, we can now just emailing and sending off pages. But anyway, so that's what it's allowed me to do. So I brought Sheldon, my son. He manages everything now. So I have learned to step back. And when I stepped back, what it did was it allowed my team or people around me to blossom. Because you want to micro control everything. It has to be done my way. I need to know exactly what's going on, because that's the only time it's going to work. And no, it doesn't. When you let go, it's just amazing. It just opens up. Everybody just shines. Okay. So Omisha is critical to my business. Otis is my right-hand man with the graphic designing. We all do lots of things. We're basically all doing everything, but we are anchored in key roles that make the business viable. And I've also learned on this course that I'm not just a journalist or just a publisher, but this is a business. It's a business, and but I'll get more into that later. So yeah, so this is my amazing team. Bali runs the Orange Farm office. We're based in Lenasia South, but yeah, so that's the structure. The intern issue for me is a very sore point. It's a great way to share your skill set, especially if your interns are coming in from degrees and diplomas at university or college level. So it helps because they're familiar with what they need to do. But actually sitting with an intern and getting them to write a story, it makes you wonder, what on earth did they learn at university? Because it's a whole different ballgame when you're actually writing a news piece. So, but anyway, so
consolation, we feel the same thing at the end of every semester.
yeah. So as much as you're sharing your knowledge with your interns, I had 3 at the start of the year. The one found we don't have much funds to pay them. They all need a stipend. We all need stipends. So the one left, the other one was snapped up after all their training of 3 months, was snapped up by a Caxton competitor in Lenasia. So she was exposed to all my planning meetings, my US trip, all of that. But anyway, so I've got one, but that's one intern, but this is certainly an avenue that we all need to be exploring. It works for me because it came at a time when I have now the website and I've got print as well. Something else I was going to say. Okay, so our businesses, because they're family run, cannot afford to maintain our adult children in the business. It's just not working. So what my son did is one of a sustainability plan. He's into performance racing and doing this all of that. So he's got a little business called Gap Performance, and interestingly, his suppliers are all in the US. So it's a small setup, but it's something that pays my grandson's school fees. But it's building. And so, like I said, we're poised for change, and we're just doing what we need to do to make things happen. Right. Okay, so this is just a brief of our reader profile. I think it's important to know who your readers are, and that came out again this week. If you know who your readers are, it shapes how your business model pans out. So in terms of operations, what kind of editorial I'm running, both print and online, what's working, what's not, and the advertising sales, right? The sad thing about this, and I'm giving you figures here that are not even, it is nowhere close to the real picture. This is from Stats SA. In my honest opinion, and what we found, is that we've got 1 million people here, right? Here we've got easily 600,000 people. And here as well, and I Googled the other night, the population figures of Orange Farm. It says 10,000. That is scary, and research is, and we learned that again this week, how critical research is. So we need to be able to be agile enough to use our readers and all our media platforms to try and understand the population figures and do our own. We cannot depend on Stats SA. because their last, if I look at the census figures, it's 2011. So that's how critical it is for us to do our own work. And that's all adds, it's stressful because we don't have we may have the skill set to some extent, but we certainly don't have the capacity or the funds to be able to fully conduct our own research. Right, thank you. This is a brief idea of where our papers go. For those of you who are in SA would probably get a good sense. Globe Post, more towards the so-called traditionally Indian areas, El Dorado Park colored areas, and so on. We've got huge numbers of informal settlements, this entire area. Okay. Walkerville and Savannah City Times is in the Midvaal municipality. These fall under Johannesburg, city of Joburg. Orange Farm has got, so it's basically, if you triangulate it, it's all in the Joburg South. Okay. Okay, so this is something you guys are probably already doing, but I love the times we're in again, and I really am so excited about the digital. And that's, I think today is the first time, or the second time I actually said, I'm a digital and print publisher, because it's dawned on me, hey, I'm really doing this. So we start off when we in terms of our digital, our stories are uploaded to the website. So how do I get the eyeballs to my website? We're using Facebook. We're posting links onto Facebook. We're using WhatsApp. We're very big on WhatsApp because that's my first, it's a huge role in my office because I manage a lot of the WhatsApp groups throughout the areas of my distribution. We're also part of other WhatsApp groups. So it's a good way of alerting people to what you put on your website, but also getting feedback in terms of what we should be covering. So I'm able to also pick up stories. We're able to mine stories from these 2 points. Okay. And you know, the conversation earlier about unqualified and journalists and all of that. My biggest station, my office, is the go-go down the road was posting about an accident. So we were scanning around to make sure that it's all been covered. This auntie is posting that and that kid is posting that. This is a huge source of information. And they are actually our competitors to some extent. It's our citizen journalists or your normal residents who are bringing news out first. Okay. This is something I'm looking at. I don't know how to, but we're exploring, like I'm saying, it's exciting times. So we're looking at the newsletters. I'm listening to all the speakers, and so we will implement at a time, but I'm looking at it. YouTube, we started, I think a month ago, I posted on AIP, we were doing these news bulletins, video news bulletins. We were experimenting. It's wonderful to do. We don't have the technology to do that, because if you don't have enough time and you've only got 5 people doing everything, you can't have 2 people spending 3 days trying to work on one video that I cannot monetize. I have no way of even tracking how many people are watching it. So what traction am I going to get? So we pause that for a little while. Oh, there we are. Okay. So this is my revenue model. Everything with print pays all of those bills. My 2 priorities are my print bills and my salaries. I don't take a salary, and I haven't done that I think since the latter part of 2021. But these are the real things, and they have to get paid. Our sales strategy, I think it's very similar to most of what you do. We do the telesales, we're phoning clients, we're retaining clients, we're doing customer service to the telesales, we go out face to face, we're talking to our clients. It's very difficult for a client to say no when you've got 2 lovely ladies looking at him. So, please, can we have an ad? I need to print, I need a half a page. Please give us an ad. And okay, just get rid of us. He said, okay, fine, half a page, done. Okay, but still, also what I've learned is important, even in our publications, to put in your own house ad, to tell people, whether it's publication or your social media, I've got an issue printing next week. It's Christmas or whatever, and people are going to give you those ads. So you need to create an awareness of your own branding. We mustn't assume that people know there's an issue coming out. So we've got to keep reminding them. The challenges. This is the winter of discontent I was talking to you about earlier. Our revenue has been slashed terribly it's scary. I mean, there were moments of huge panic for the last 6 months. So advertisers don't really, especially if we're not getting government advertising, you're not getting your corporate advertising, you're not getting ad agencies. So what's going to happen? You're taxing the small business owner who's already embattled with his own financial stresses. So you're forced to reduce your pricing. And then it's basically you're selling your ads for next to nothing. And especially when you've got Caxton in, and with an unregulated, we're not protected. So you're forced to give a guy an ad for 3,500 when you know that you're supposed to be selling it at 9.5 or whatever the case may be, which is still much less than what other people are charging. However, so that's the oligopolies. We've got Caxton. Gives us no endless grief across the publications. Yeah, government advertising, corporate, out of the question. We're growing our online, we're growing the digital, but it's baby steps. We haven't monetized the sites yet. What we are doing is building eyeballs to the site. I'm creating an awareness. You know, in the past, we would take an entire month to put together 12 stories for a weekly. Now we're turning around 12 good stories in a day. So it's about working smart, and especially now with the trip to the US. From about December last year, my son said to me, we had endless staff meetings about this. So before I got to the US, I'd already done most of the key pages across the titles. So it was just like pages 1, 3, and 5 that we were going to drop in key stories, and which means that we can do that. We can actually work smarter, more efficiently and let other people do the work as well. So you're not bogged down and stuck in a space where if I'm not at my office, the world stops. Zeno Media or Zeno project just stops. It doesn't. My office right now, they're distributing the paper. I was editing the key pages this morning. Paper's out, and it's happening, and they're doing the invoices and everything is happening. So yeah, so that's that. Yeah, we've had to adapt. We've had to adapt. So there are lots of things. We've moved offices. I bought a building about 12 years ago for my office close to home. I used to work from home before. But what that meant was I took that building and the front of the building, I created a shops. So it pays my bond, right? So if I'm in a situation where I cannot pay, I don't have to pay rent, I'm paying my bond, but the tenants pay the bond, which means that lease frees me up to invest in the business, right? So we've got unlimited cell phone bills. I think a lot of you have that already. One of the most exciting things that's happened is our relationship with Andrew Dabbs. And I do hope he gets to see this session, because he came in and he exposed a different side of digital to me. And it was scary because I was so used to print. And I always thought that digital was going to be so time consuming, and I didn't have the capacity for that. But however, it's just changed everything. We're learning to work smarter, more efficiently. And my publication, and I know some of you are not happy with the kind of payments we're getting, but it exposes my brand to the likes of Nedbank and McDonald's and Wimpy, which would never have happened had I not engaged with him. And I also think it's critical for publishers to meet the readers where they're at. Who are the majority of my readers? If you look at informal settlements around me, it's traditional African readership. So I've had to change with the times, and I'm happy to do that, because remember what I said when I first started the presentation? I want to make a challenge. I want to make a change. I'm a warrior for that. I want to change the world constantly, and it starts with me changing my world, and that's my office. Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it from here. Next one. Okay, so I'm a little bit tongue in cheek here, but I didn't want to say, listen, we need help in this, but so we said, I'm saying areas we seek strengthening in. So this one's a lot for you, Bill, and your networks, but anyway, and our fellow publishers. So these are some of the things that I think we're all needing. Okay. Identifying and implementing sustainable print and digital business models. It's the very reason why we're on this trip. If it works in my office, it's going to work for a lot of the AIP publishers. And cross-platform content production and distribution, very new for me. To some of the younger, like Chris and that, I mean, these things happen naturally for you, but for me, it takes work. So, but we all need to know how to do this, to harness and embrace the changes that the digital right now. Implementation of solutions journalism. I'm very excited about this because my host publisher, Richland Source, this is what they do. And they're generating revenue from this. And we've been doing this for years, taking issues, getting solutions, finding solutions, working with the relevant authorities to, as the custodians of residents and of the areas our footprints. We've been doing this for years. It's like I was saying to me, did that Zoom group, and I said, there's a title, it's been labeled now, but it's something a lot of us, however, wherever our sectors are, we've been doing this, but this is just a smarter, more informed way of doing it, right? So I'm very excited about this. This as well, Richland Sources they're quite proactive with their AI. So how do we use?
They're very responsible with their AI.
Yeah, but then you spoke about what was it? The hatching, the matching, and the stacking. Yeah.
Birth announcements, weddings.
So imagine that we have this in our newsrooms. Again, efficiency. We're informed, and it manages. Hopefully, we'll be able to manage that entire process. So very exciting times again. I'm very passionate about this, sharing knowledge, empowering, educating. And in terms of the national qualifications framework that South Africa is promoting, is that we need to build skills in the sector. We need to be able to harness and nourish those people coming out of the system, the education system, be able to share and build and educate, okay? So they can carry on. That's the future generation that we're looking at. Technology is our biggest problem, I think, in all our newsrooms. We're working with outdated technology. So it's like 3 times the time to get things done. What I love about prior to, about 3 days before I got here, I got the new Samsung phone. It's working smarter. There's so many things that our cell phone, our mobiles do now that could not have been done back in the day. I don't need a video camera anymore. I can use my normal, even the office camera. I can use my cell phone. This is where we're at. We're passing accidents. We're doing all kinds of things, and we've been doing it, taking photographs of ourselves all over the buildings in Athens. So I mean, we need this. We need help with all of these things, So I think you may have read this already. You had enough time to do that. Okay, so for those who have survived, we need to continue repositioning, refreshing, aligning business and newsroom strategies to keep heads above water. This initiative, this US trip, has come when it's really needed. And I'm so thankful to be here. And all of us are really. And the meal last night was phenomenal, by the way.
That alone was worth the trip.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But everything is about the greater good. It goes back to when I started again. I'm a warrior. I was born for this. I don't know how to do anything else. I don't think I'll ever retire. I'll probably be still editing, even if I'm like, just about to switch the machines off, I'll still be editing something. But anyway, yeah, so we're extremely grateful for this opportunity and look forward to an ongoing relationship with all of you for all the tomorrows to come. It's essential. We need each other. So I think I've spoken enough. If you have any questions, thank you very much.
And of course, week 3, the first 3 days of week 3 are all about simple, low-cost ways to do things. So that's the whole program. You have to get back to something that's going to be focused on technology, hardware, software, multimedia gadgets.
Okay.
We have time for exactly one question.
I told you I'm passionate.
31 years? On scale, that's pretty good. Okay.
Are we
Peter,
done?
you want to come on up?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirley. Peter, are we just gonna dock your computer? Okay.
No, I was on time.
And I don't have keynote on the machine, so.
I'll send you mine to you after this.
What's up? Oh. I mean, I prefer Apple products. Here's my mirroring capability. Trying to figure out how to do mirroring. It's not showing me how to mirror. No, I'm in the right setting. I'm in displays. What we need to do is mirror. Oh, here we go. It's not giving me the mirror option. Here we go, here we go, here we go. That's more better. Okay. It's so you covered.
Yeah.
Start up and move. Okay. Your full screen? Yeah.
Okay, thank God.
You need to be mic'd up.
You have to be mic'd for the live.
Oh,
Oh, gosh, with the light all this time.
I like that.
Thanks.
This is at business college.
Yeah, once again, good afternoon, industry colleagues, journalists, editors, publishers. I am everything, jack of all trades, but specializing in journalism mostly. I'm not a businessman. I'll try my best to introduce our brand. It is the IIJ-AIP News, which stands for the People's Eye. Yeah, I've been a journalist my whole life. I started up from the mainstream media, going down to community journalism, but still maintaining my feet in the mainstream media. It helps a lot to market the publication when the brand stories are in the mainstream media. If people can do research about your area, catchment area, they'll pick up the stories that we are writing and know that there's a community newspaper in that area. Yeah, so I am Peter Luhanga, like I said. I'm the founder, co-founder, managing editor, and journalist. We can move on to slide 2. So what do we do at the IIJ-AIP News and the Mother City News? We practice independent journalism, amplifying the voice of the voiceless. We value ethical journalism. That's really very important to us. We are in the business of journalism, telling news, and by that impacting people's life on the ground. And through doing that, we would be able to get noticed by people or corporates that are interested in the community where we reach. Yeah, this is why our work counts. As you can see, here is an example of one of the informal settlements that we cover. It's called Donon. It's in Minadon, Cape Town, in the Western Cape. These are communal toilets where people, hundreds and hundreds of people share. And it's terrible. And I'm here every day interacting with people, every day, telling their stories. And then once we do these interviews, for objectivity, we send questions to the city. The city of Cape Town is quite good, though. There's a 24-hour turnaround time to give responses to our media queries. But when they are busy formulating those responses, they send officials on the ground to kind of check what's going in there. And those officials, when they're checking, they're fixing the problem, and the city will respond, we went there, this is what we did. You know what the residents, our readers do now? They know, oh, it's IIJ-AIP who did this. They came here to interview us. In response, officials came here, and it's almost like solution journalism. But we don't provide solutions though. But yeah, because we get to check with officials, why is the situation like this and why are you not helping them? And people get the result. Yeah, so we translate our lead stories into isiXhosa, one of the local languages in the Western Cape, to accommodate our readers who are second language English readers. And through the voices that we amplify, we seek to express the views of those who live in overcrowded conditions and who lack the basic of even humane accommodation and municipal services. So as you see here, this is near a railway line across, and people invaded that portion of land. And there could be like 2 stand types of clean water servicing more than 10,000 people. It's not a good thing.
So just a quick question. Paper is bilingual?
Yes, it is. As you see here, this story here, Women March for Safety, you could find it in here. Obamama Bachelor Kukukusele. And this is the City of Cape Town advert, which is provided to us in directly in isiXhosa. And this story, as you see it here, because our journalism is done properly, I do write for Ground Up as an independent writer. This story was also featured in Ground Up. Ground Up is a non-profit news organization. So what we do, when the papers are like coming out tomorrow, and it's been laid out, Ground Up publishes it, we publish it the same day. So Ground Up doesn't have to come to say, no, but you guys went in face and stuff like that, because we own our stories. Yeah, we also working like an agency for them. They pay me as Peter, not IIJ-AIP. In that money for sustainability, I put it in my track to put petrol, because most of our clients are state entities and they take more than 30 days to pay us. In the meantime, we are stuck. You don't have diesel, and then you got freelancers, they need stipend. It's just crazy. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. So again, who we are, that's our logo. You can see an eye there. Select the lenses in the camera. So we see that, we see what most people can't see as journalists. And that even when we try to take a leave in December, festive season, you take a drive, everything you see is related to news, but you're not supposed to be working. You take a walk to the beach, for example, you walk a dog, and you're looking at story ideas. The mind keeps on working. What can you write about this subject, about that subject? So yeah, we are an entrepreneurial independent media company. What we do best is really, like I identified, our commodity is news journalism that sustains us to keep going and doing the right thing. Move to the next slide, please. Our vision is quite detailed there. You guys can read it on yourselves later because you're going to have access to this. But I can point some of the things. Take a look at this example here. This was also a mainstream story that we broke from the grassroots level. In this man, I've been driving past him in my township where I work, and this is a rock he picked up in an underground sewage pipes. And these are feces you see here. This is a municipal truck. It's sucking feces out there. So people, this is like normal. At some point when I'm driving here, I was like, this is normal for me. It's no longer a news story because I've written and and nothing changes. But on this day, what struck me, it's this man. He's a father, he's a husband, he's everything. And he's at work here, and I saw him licking feces that was splattered in his face, and I pulled over. I'm like, how do you do this kind of work? So he started explaining to me that this is work and sustains my family. And when kids are coming, there's a high school behind him. Some kids spit. And when he goes home, he doesn't disclose to his own kids that this is the kind of work he does. And I kept interviewing him. I wanted him to tell me his extraordinary story. And he did. And when this story was published, it was on our page 1 of the IIJ-AIP news. retired Judge Cameron, says, this is a very good story. Thank you for highlighting such important person in our society that could have gone without being recognized. So the thing is, if you do the right thing for us, if you're doing the right thing, if you grasp your journalism properly, telling these extraordinary stories, you become a sought after public, you are selling yourself through doing the right thing, doing groundbreaking grassroots journalism that's featuring in your publication, but it's also syndicated in the mainstream. That we managed to grasp it well at Iris Media, Mother City News, and ED Solabantu. So I'm sure some of the guys you've gone through this, we believe that in an age of algorithms and AI, reinforcement media feedback loops, we believe print is still one of the best ways to break the echo chamber constructed around readers of news and counter the phenomenon of misinformation distributed by unethical platforms. What do we mean by unethical platforms? Unethical platforms is Facebook. Like some of the colleagues presenters spoke about Facebook here, that everybody else can be a journalist. You give people forms to attend the community meetings, to answer certain questions, and these things, you write them as stories. I'm not comfortable with that. You're gonna edit something, you were not there, and this person is not a trained journalist. And unless if we tell these people to write down contacts of the people that we're speaking there, and then we can fact check those things, the quotes, for example. And these things are distributed mostly on unethical platforms, and it goes viral. Fake news is always travels faster than real news. It's that we have noticed in our townships. And what's really exciting about this, in our catchment area, in the township, they made me a moderator of a Facebook group, just like that. And sometimes I pick up news articles, but I don't publish comments. Then I go single out those people that have been mentioned in the comments, track them down, and then they can speak about these issues they were talking on Facebook. There's a publication that we produced last week before we traveled here. It speaks about healthcare, and it's quite an exciting story where people, there was lots of complaints on Facebook, but I didn't want to utilize Facebook as a source. So I went down there and did my own interviews and approached authorities and to sort of like give their side of the story. We managed to get that right. Yeah, so I've done explaining most of that. So in Blacking This Echo Chamber, we aim to be respected and sought after publication for residents of and commuters to the suitable for the Mother City News and surrounding suburbs, as well as especially to residents living in informal settlements. Ili Solabantu, it's mostly distributed in people that live in overcrowded conditions. And most of these people doesn't have a voice. So we are their hope. They look forward to us. And we are the only hope they have in terms of giving the voice for the authorities to hear them, to sort of come down there and meet and hear their concerns. So what we notice is, because the area is overcrowded, guys just wake up to say they can't continue paying rentals because you got a state-funded house over there and people rent in the backyard. So he's tired, especially during COVID. Our country was completely shut down. So guys were not able to pay rentals. They got out of the backyard house and went to invade, for example, private-owned land. Land is a big issue. As you could see, for example, in one of our titles, the Mother City News story say release the land. It's a very thorny issue, and it's stuff that we cover, things that really matter. If you speak about land to somebody that is living in a shack, you're going to become his darling, but don't want to do that. So yeah, we expressly aim to grow into a media organization that mentors, develops, and provide opportunities to young journalism graduates. That's what we do. I think Shelley also mentioned about that, to passing on the responsibility to the Gen Z. It's not really they are not really interested in media. But we want to also be able to tap into the available platforms of disseminating news. But for myself, I'm trying to find out how, like TikTok, it's reaching a lot of kids in our township. Everybody is using TikTok. How can we tap into that leadership and also get our clients to put on paid content in these platforms, besides putting paid content in the main print newspaper? Next slide. editorial policy. It's quite really detailed. I'm not going to touch much on that. You guys can read it on your own later. But these are the things that we adhere to: the press code and the South African Press Ombudsman. We have one of the oldest publications in our country. It was owned by Irish publishers. It was sold to one. He's labeled as a crook in our country because he does dodgy deals. He pulled out his newspaper from the press ombudsman. He appointed his own press ombudsman. If you read he published a story about decupris, the 10 babies. And it's just so. I'm not mentioning any names. These things are out there. It's out there. Anyway, this is.
I've worked for a really horrible editorial boss.
For me, it wasn't really horrible, but
When?
but maybe when you're working for a horrible boss, you do not know that this boss is horrible because he pays your salaries.
No, I do.
Yeah, so we have an editorial policy, it's in place, and we adhere to what we're stating in here. It's all there. And the next slide, please. Yeah, fact information. I'm going to go through this very quickly. And well, it's an exciting story. I remember when I left Media 24, when I was writing for Daily Sun tabloid newspaper. In the newsroom, it was an open space. The newsrooms are, the subs sit there, everybody sits there. I was writing stories for the Daily Sun and I started working for my own newspaper, utilizing Media 24 resources, in Media 24 telephones. And when the newspaper comes, I take a company car, Media 24 car, petrol card, go to Media 24 printer's house and take the newspaper using their car and going to distribute my newspaper. It was crazy. And one guy pimped me to the bureau chief like he's doing his own business in here. So I was told that it's either I leave or freelance and work from home. I said, I would rather leave. So I left and they kept using my copy though, because it was too good. And because I would go do interviews, write stories, and do the component of that time. News videos we are taking over, like we have to produce your own story, still pictures, and edit a news video at the same time. Edison was exploring things. So I'm trained and I've got all these skills set. So when I come back, I would type the main story, edit it, and so they liked me, but I was being abused, I was underpaid. So when they said leave, I said, well, it's fine, I'll leave. But they kept on using my stories up until 2014. So when we say we were founded in 2015 here, it's just for the records. Actually, we started in 2013. We produced 2 editions in 20. There was no money. Most of you would agree. We don't make money. We are not here as journalists for money, though. So in 2013, when I saw potential in our community that there is no really a solid community newspaper that is bilingual. So I went to, we call it a shabin in the township. Which is a tavern, it's a legal establishment. And they knew who I was. And so I convinced the lady, the owner, to say, listen, I want to promote your shabin, to say it's where it's happening. And itself, people can come drink here. But it says, but you don't have any product. I say, I have. You just have to take a leap of faith. So she took a whole page. I knew how much it was going to cost me to pay the printers. So I told her exactly the money she should give me in order to write a commercial feature. Is that my phone? Sorry for that. Just gonna switch it off. Okay. So I was paid and I told a designer that he just have to put it together. I will be able to sort out his earnings later as I keep on writing. And that was done. We had the first edition in mid-2013. And then I think 3 times more. I went back to that lady. She gave me more money. We wrote her commercial feature and the news stories. And people really liked the brand. They said, no, we need this. And word spread. We have a refinery next door to the township. They got hold of me to say, do you have at least a rate card? I said, what is that? They said, no, it's something that guides you for us to place space in your paper and be able to pay you. The city of Cape Town did the same thing, and ESCO, the one that is like in trouble now. Yeah, so 2014, we did these kind of things. By 2015, I said, but this has to be properly established. So formed an media entity, registered with CIPC. Most guys of you know about this. And it was organic. Never been a day where we haven't printed. We've been consistent in our printing. What's amazing is that even during COVID, we had a colleague, Nashwad, you agree with Muhammad, you agree with me. We had a colleague used on the next 48 hours, Nashwad Khan. So his paper was mostly about events, what's happening at the casino, at the waterfront. So when COVID hit, there was no events. He had to close it. He had no choice. So we are public interest journalism-driven entrepreneurial company. And when COVID hit, people relied on us to provide them information, to tell them what's going on. So we were never closed. We are very lucky. And we are in this niche market. We've got an anchor tenant. I hope it continues that way, but we just need to grow and find other means of making money, diversifying. This is why we all here, to get to learn all these things. So frequency for the COSA one, it's bi-monthly, distributed in the township and municipal sub-council. We cover municipal sub-council. That's where these people sit, discuss what they should do with their ward allocations. This is money that the community can decide what to utilize on. And we find out that most people in the ward, they don't attend these meetings. And once we cover these things in the paper, in their own language, they're able to know that they are allowed to ask their ward councillor to say, this is what we need with this money. So that's what we do. Yeah, how much do we print? We've been stuck at 11,000 for now. And we've just been doing surrounding informal settlements, like I've been saying. You're gonna read all this. Supermarkets, libraries, police stations, yeah, for guys needing affidavits and all that. Mother City News is mostly centralized, is in the Cape Town CBD. It's mostly focused on it's dialect and conversational in order to nurture the long-standing relation with our leaders who seek us out as an insightful and enjoyable lead with local interests at the heart. So we've been stuck with 5,000 print run there. So it's between in the Cape Town CBD, coffee shops, supermarkets, yeah, and all those areas listed there. Next slide, please. Sustainability. Yeah, this is quite interesting. I was exploring at some point, and we went to SoundCloud. I've tried SoundCloud where when you go do a story and you're alone. So I find it easier for me to take down my notes in a notebook rather than recording, because it's easy when I go type, I just look and type, rather than recording and start listening and go back listening. If you didn't hear properly, it takes much time if you're on Newsday, right? So with podcasts, then you have to record, write, take. It's a lot of work. So I didn't continue testing out the podcast interviews, but it's quite exciting. We have a platform on SoundCloud. So print advertising makes up 100% of our revenue. We do not at present have any sustainable, I'm being honest, we don't really have any sustainability models other than having committed crimes for the past 8 years. And what's amazing is because the newspaper is run by journalists, we don't have a functioning marketing department, and that's so sad. Because if we are able to survive 8 years without a marketing department, that means that we have so much potential. If we just had someone full-time to make calls, to go visit someone every day, and we set a target of 100K every edition, and this person would be able to deliver. But then again, these people you hire marketing reps, they need a basic salary, commission, and there's a lot of uncertainty in our industry. Like, will we be able to pay salary for this person? What if we don't make that money? So we say, well, we just keep going, and yeah, years goes. So we do not at present have a sustainability model. If our committed advertorial clients who have been supporting us for the past year pull the plug, we would need to fall back. We will never die. I know for sure, and I believe that we'll never close our doors. We would keep on going, doing what we're doing, either online, somehow. Yeah, we can never die. Remember when we started, we went we went to approach the banks to borrow us some money, like an over. All of them refused. The first 2 years, they refused, but they started coming to us to offer us these overdrafts when they saw money flowing in there. Yeah, excuse me. Next slide, please. Our team. The first person you see here, this is my wife. She's an unpaid executive. Nobody gets paid there. Peter, it's me. The managing editor. And I once won an award. I don't want to dwell much on that. It's like blowing your own trumpet. We don't do that. Our work speaks for itself. I do not get money from the publication because if I say this is how much I'm worth to be paid, then yeah, we won't be able to pay the printers. We won't be able to pay the other guys that freelance for us. If I draw a salary. Steve Kretzmann, he's a sub-editor, designer layout. We have that guy. I didn't want to put the images over there. And that's me. You see over here, I was out helping out with newspaper distribution. We do everything. See, we do, and people love it. And when you go in the township, you're cutting bundles of newspaper. I remember one time I went to Pick and Pay. It's a grocery retailer in South Africa. So it was near Central City. As I go drop off a bundle of newspapers there, the manager says, "Do you work for them?" I said, "Yes, I work for them." "Can you tell them that we need more copies of this thing? People love it here." I said, I'm gonna go tell them. "Do you have a business card or something so I can give to these people?" So he gave me one. So I called on the phone. "I'm that gentleman we spoke with. I would like to set up a meeting with you." It started well, but we never clinched it, you see. But at least I didn't want to shock him then. I am the publisher, the editor, and I'm distributing my own news. He was not going to take me serious, really. So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to give the people responsible. They're going to give you a call." And I went to the office the following day. I called him. Anyway, so we got an intern. She's a Gen Z. She shouted at me the other day when I was rewriting her story. She was rude, but I understand she's young. I told her that we were screamed at in our time. We never retorted back and say, "Oh, these things you're telling me." Yeah, anyway. But I would like her to learn, and as we get older, they come more stronger and they can take over. And we have 7 member team, including a driver, that are in charge of distribution. And we utilize an independent audit and accounting firm, Dynamic Group SA. And so our impact comes in the next slide. There's a feel-good story which was captured on national television. So for Prof. Bill and others, Afternoon Express is a national program on a national television station. So this is our impact after we did this story.
Give me a second, I gotta set up the sound to play over the. I know on the screen, it looks really big. On this, it's so tiny. It's like.
But they can hear the interview from there if you just up the volume.
I minimized it now. Just a second. Bear with the old guy.
Yeah, that is just 2 to the left, 3 to the left.
Is that it?
In the not in the B. What are you looking for?
The file?
Oh, the file is right here. It's over here.
Oh, it's already open. I just minimized it.
Was
It's,
it-
look, everything's so tiny here. I can barely see it. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, it's in pages, yeah. So this is a national television program, and where millions of South Africans are watching.
Express, where we are saluting South Africans who are doing amazing things, who are achieving high goals that a lot of us think are impossible. Now, Siamthanda Mkeku is a recent matriculant who made news headlines after earning 7 distinctions and a bursary to study medicine at the University of Stellenbosch. What made his story resonate with so many of us is that he achieved this against all odds, whilst he was sharing a small shack with 4 other people in Cape Town. He joins us this afternoon along with the journalist who discovered his story, Peter Luhanga. Gentlemen, welcome to Afternoon Express.
Thank you for having us.
Your story just gives me goosebumps because Siamtanda, a lot of people might think, I come from this, and they blame a lot of where they end up in life from their beginning, their upbringing. But you have turned everything around and made such an incredible success of yourself. And as you say with the newspaper, Iliso Labantu, you are people's eyes, essentially. So thank you so much. And I know you've got a message that you want to share with us.
Yes, so I have a message, Pete. If it wasn't for you, first of all, I would have been sitting right here in the Afternoon Express show. So I really want to share my deepest gratitude to you, man. Like, for taking that opportunity. Like the other story is that, guys, when it came about the article, he actually called me and I was at home sleeping in Molliton. So he really called me like, sometime like, could you please come to my offices at the Pinnacle building in town? I have like no taxi fare money, and I was like, I was just gonna say yes to this guy and just go back to sleep. And then I thought of it after a moment while I was like, this is probably an opportunity. Let me just, try something in there. So I went to my guardian, Nombo Niselo, Bonita Buswana. I went to her, asked her for taxi fare money. I got the money, I went straight to town. And then I met Peter, expecting a journalist client interaction, like, okay, it's just gonna interview me and then I go. And when I came there, this guy actually welcomed me with warm eyes. Friendship at first sight, I would say. And he kept on contact after the interview, after the article, updating on what is going on. So I really want to thank him, and he's become part of my life now, a huge part and a huge factor. If it wasn't for him, I wasn't in here. So I would love to say thank you to you, man. And
Here's Wellington.
Yeah, that's all about it. That's our impact in our communities.
Yeah, on for exactly one question.
I have a question.
As if I could stop you. She looked at me for permission.
Presentation, Peter. I'm just curious though, I get the thinking about you and your wife not earning a salary because of the nature of the business. But do you know though what those costs would be if you could afford them? Because I'm thinking a potential investor looking at this would actually not be impressed with that slide because you want to know what your business costs are in total.
I do know the business costs. That's why I don't take her money. She has a full-time job elsewhere, and she does help me with admin now and again. And she doesn't need money from the business because she works full-time in an academic industry, but she helps me with certain things because I can't do everything alone. And I am overall manager, and I don't know. I take a stipend, like I will take a stipend for diesel, more than enough to sort out certain things, and it's captured by our accountant whenever they do things like this is so much we made this year. You need to do this, you need that, and that's why it's so sad. We don't even have a business model. We've always been pushing the journalism aspect of it, and maybe when we learn on how to put together a business model, like we've seen with our colleagues here, and if these things are in place, and I think this publication will do better.
Okay, because I'm also thinking, sorry, I know it's one question, that knowing those costs, if you needed to evaluate your business, if say you were to take Chris up on him, on his 10% equity, you would need to know the value of that equity. And the starting point is knowing your operational costs.
Yeah, we know.
Whether you pay them or not.
Yeah, we know those.
Okay.
Yeah, we know those. That's why we can't hire full-time people. We can't simply afford them.
Actually,
Anybody? Keep on doing what you're doing, man. It's inspiring.
Thank you, Chris.
Well done.
Thank you.
public service.
Thank
You
you.
get hugs. Hugs are payment. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. We'll try to keep it to 10 minutes.
How did you buy this laptop if you don't?
The company bought it.
Steve.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you mind if we take the lanyard off?
Oh, yeah,
It
that's fine.
doesn't Scratch
Yep.
on the.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
You have a copy of the national.
Yeah, it's right there. This guy. Yeah. This one here.
And then if I can just ask.
Yes.
To stay in frame of the picture.
Yeah, like here?
They're like lead, not go further left.
Okay, gotcha.
Thanks.
I'll try to. I like to wander. Yep. So
I'm
perfect.
multitasking, so, yeah.
I understand. And how far? About here?
No, that's fine. Took this to the end of the street. I'll have the whole screen.
Oh, yeah, the whole screen area. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So perfect. Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah. And he did listen to me. He did listen to me.
All right, awesome.
Play.
He does now. Visual aid. No, a little bit, but not.
I don't know. The owner of the company should have to be able to play it.
I know, right?
I can go to
Yeah. Harmonica, yeah.
Yeah, in the blues, they call it the harp,
Mhm.
or the blues harp. But it is a harmonica.
Yep. It ties in, trust me.
It's not just a gimmick. Well, in and out. Is it? Oh, yeah.
And you actually put your mouth more around it, like your lips.
You know, there's some guitarists, they have headgear that the harmonica goes in. They can't manipulate with their hands because they're playing guitar. So they breathe in and out to make the different tone, the different notes. And you use your tongue to feel the progressions. So you use just a little tip of your tongue to feel the different holes for the different progressions. Until you get totally used to it, and then it's fretless.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Sing it, brother.
You said 3:30 is the first.
You need the rest?
Huh?
You need the rest of them?
Fine. Yeah.
We can go, I mean, it depends on how it goes.
So just it's fluid.
Yeah, it's fluid. If you want to end a little early, you can.
Okay. Okay.
You just work over the break then. You know, this is a 90-minute.
Yeah.
To 2 hours max, so.
Okay. Well, if you think we need a break, like just that's fine. Jump in whenever.
Some
Okay.
people might get up and go in the middle,
Yeah.
so don't feel bad.
Well, not at all.
I'm also the barista, so I have to go check on her coffee machine. As you know, my.
Multitask, right?
Let us know when to go. Good. Okay, everybody. It is a real pleasure to have Milo Miller from the Budget Publishing Company here with us, Budget Printing Company, right?
Yep.
Although they don't print, they hire it out.
We do.
As I said before the break, I don't like to use the word unique because it's overused, but the budget is truly unique. And it is a fascinating example of community journalism that is in one way tied to a specific place, in another way tied to a specific culture, and another way it's innovating in its way of managing to serve a pretty interesting cultural and geographic community. So I don't want to steal too much thunder. I just want to say that we have done a number of international programs over the years, and the budget has always been a part of it in some way. And most people walk away from the experience truly enriched. Some don't get it. A lot of people don't get it, but they appreciate it. And that's the main thing, is that, you know, what the budget does may not apply to your operation in any way, but it might inspire you to think completely differently about the way you do things. So think of it more as appreciating a piece of abstract art than as something necessarily to emulate. And a good piece of abstract art. With
Well, thank
that,
you.
Milo.
Well, thank you so much. Very, very kind introduction. Thank you. And it's an honor to be with peers. This is fantastic. So, you know, so I'm sure I can probably take as much or more from you guys than you could ever probably take from me. So it's an honor to be a part with you guys today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the budget, what we do, who we are, where we're going, a little bit of the history. So first, we are the largest newspaper serving the Amish Mennonites worldwide. So our clientele, most of the base is Amish, and we do have quite a few Mennonites as well. So to tell you a little bit about the Mennonite community. So it is a Christian or a Christian community, kind of as their separatist group who believe that they're in the world, but not of the world. So they separate themselves. They dress very plainly. They dress very similarly. You're going to see kind of the same colors, same dressing scheme. They still use horse and buggy. They do not drive vehicles. They do not have internet. They do not use radio. They do not use television. They are completely separated from the world in those regards. Of course, they interact with what we call English, which would be us non-Amish. They call English.
Y'all would be English and Amish.
Yeah, so very confusing, right? But they are a people group that started in 1525. So we're coming up in the 500th anniversary of the Anabaptist movement. Started in Europe, and essentially they believe the state dictated that all the kids were baptized at birth. They believe differently. They think it should be a conscious choice to be baptized into the Christian faith. So they were persecuted throughout Europe, traversed Europe, through hundreds of years, trying to stay safe, lost their lives to martyrdom. But in the early 1700s, about 1747, the first wave of Amish came over to the United States, settled in eastern Pennsylvania. A Revolutionary War happened here, moved to central PA, and then a lot moved further west into Ohio. I'm based in Tuscarawas County, which is neighboring to Holmes County. Holmes County is the second largest Amish community in the United States, right behind Lancaster County, PA, which is outside Philadelphia. So we serve a community that is predominantly Amish. Holmes County is a very small community, being an entire length approximately about 40, 50 miles wide, maybe 20 miles tall. Only about 32,000 people live in that vicinity. Over half of those are Amish, so live in that culture. So we published a newspaper that started organically in 1890 as just a community newspaper. The small town Sugar Creek is where we publish. And in 1880, the town was founded because of the railroad. Someone felt that community needed a newspaper, started one. But what happened was, like many of us in this room, he was a one-person show. He was a publisher, he was the editor, he was the printer, he did everything. He was a one-person show. So he started, and he was a young man, had this big idea of creating this newspaper. So he had friends that were Amish that moved out west to Western Ohio and different settlements. This was a time when a lot of the Amish were moving westward in the United States. So he sent a sample copy to his friends who were moving west. And one of his friends who moved west wrote a note back and said, we really enjoy the budget. We enjoy what's happening in Sugar Creek, but here's what's happening in our new community, Amish community. And his name is John Miller. He read this letter and thought it was so, he was a one-person show. He didn't have content. He wasn't a journalist by nature. So he said, this is a great letter. I'm going to put it in the next budget. This is issue number 3. He put that letter in the budget. Next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, he got a few more letters from friends. He put them in the budget. By the end of that year, 1890, he had over 35 scribes in 15 states that were writing letters to him, talking about what's happening in their Amish community. So it just organically turned into what we see today. So right now, this is the national edition of the budget. This is what we're known and revered for. We have 1,100 writers, what we call scribes. They're from communities all over the United States and beyond into Canada. You'll actually even see some international correspondence. A lot of those are missionaries. And you look in the middle here, the index, you'll see all the different states, all the different locations and the page numbers that are associated. And by the way, I tend to be more conversational. So if you have questions or anything at any point, please, feel free to ask. So, and this doesn't look much different than what the budget looked in 1890 when we started. Of course, it's a lot bigger than it is now. On this guy, we average about 52 to 56 pages each week. Right now, we mail out to 49 of the 50 states. We have correspondences or writers in approximately 40 states right now, all Amish Mennonite settlements. So all these letters that you'll see in here are from folks that are either Amish or Mennonite. So it is that certain group. And to even go back to the Amish and Mennonite heritage, me personally, my father was raised Amish. My grandfather was an Amish bishop. My father never joined church, so my mom's not from the Amish. But we have a shared story with the Amish Mennonite. Most of us have that same lineage. Like we can trace ourselves all the way back to, the 1600s, to the persecution that we've seen in Europe. We have that same shared story. In fact, in Holmes County alone, people with an Amish background, 70% of them are related to the other people in that community. It's that, it's not a wide tree. There were not a lot of Amish. Yes.
Are you part of the church?
Of the Amish church? I am not. No.
How is the acceptance on the views, or you aggregate information? Do you have an opinion on things that happen or editorial comments?
So the content is submitted by we have what we call scribes. So they go through an application process to be their writer, to be essentially the journalist for that community. They submit it, then we publish it for them. Our mantra that we still say today, and I tell our employees all the time, it's their newspaper. We're just privileged enough to publish it for them. So they are, the writers you see will be people from the community that are reporting the news. I almost liken it to what pure journalism should be, because they're writing what's going on. They're reporting the facts, and reporting from their community in a non-biased way. Well, hopefully, so they're presenting what's going on in their community. We often joke that we have more correspondents than the New York Times because we have 1,100 people that are writing in what's going on. And you have to remember too, with these writers, they don't have television, they don't have radio. Some of them don't even have phones. Some of them don't have plumbing in their homes, no running water. It depends on where. There's a lot of different sects with the Amish, like a lot of other religions. This is not only their entertainment, but this is the way they get their news. There's actually one Amish sect called the Swartzen Troopers. This is the only publication that's permitted in their home. And see what happens with that. When COVID hit, they had no outside source of what was going on with COVID. So we felt almost a sense of obligation. We got different departments of health like Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, even just submitted press releases about what's going on, how to protect yourself. And we normally don't put that stuff in the national edition, but we felt a sense of obligation because of what was going on. and just to keep them informed because they had no other news source on knowing what was going on with COVID. So, yes.
How did you navigate that? Because COVID, there was
a lockdown period.
Sure.
Where you were online.
Correct.
So how did that work?
You mean to publish the paper?
Yes.
We,
And distribute the actual hard copy.
we were an essential business, so we could continue. I had most of my staff was working from home as much as we could, but we continued to print. We continued to mail. We did not miss one issue, so everything continued to move. The post office continued to move. Things slowed down a little bit with the post office. I mean, it took a little longer to get the paper out, but we did not miss one edition. Yeah, because we were classified as an essential business. So a necessary business to get information out to the people.
Yeah, newspapers were largely exempt from the.
Yes, we were, but just the best, because what we did in South Africa mainly, the physical copies were suspended.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Here, it was not. The government, there are a lot of people who rely on print media for their news and information, such as news and information about the pandemic. So that's why it was deemed an essential service. It's exempt from the shutdown.
Yeah, the viewers, I'm just saying that the
A
actual.
hard copy.
That's what I'm saying.
Because of
The hard copy here was exempt. So the newspapers continued to print.
So through that time, of COVID, we were able to kind of navigate those waters, keep information out in front of our folks, letting them know what was going on, even, why things were shut down, because a lot of people were unaware of the reasons for that. So that was kind of an interesting time. I mean, an interesting time for everyone, but, for us, we almost felt a sense of obligation because we knew in some circles, they would have no idea what was going on, especially in the early days of COVID. But we go, as you'll see, through the paper, we go all over the United States, from Washington to California to New Mexico to Florida to Maine. We have subscribers and scribes, writers from those communities telling us what's going on in those communities. So we've been going strong, like I said, since 1890, 133 years, and we continue to grow. I wish this wasn't the fact, but, I feel like we're one of the few newspapers in the country that continue to increase in subscriptions. Over the pandemic, we increased our circulation about 2,000. We're excess of 20,000 paid subscribers throughout the United States, about 9,000 within the state of Ohio here. So we also have a local edition that you'll see as well that was part of that covers our local edition or local news. So that's from our community. So more of a traditional community newspaper, but it kind of through the lens of a conservative group. We know what our audience is. They are a religious sect. They are conservative. And honestly, although they talk very politically, we do not do anything political. There's no political ads, no political talk, because by their doctrine, they're not supposed to vote or take any action within the polls or anything. They truly believe they're pilgrims passing through, and that they're in this world but not of this world, and just obviously here temporary. So they're not for instance, here in the United States, they still do a pledge of allegiance to the flag to the United States. The Amish Mennonites will not do that because they will not pledge allegiance to any state, to any country. Their home, their kingdom is heaven.
Although they have a great sense of humor.
They have fantastic.
And, in Holmes County, because there's so much tourism there, people come to stop at Amish stores and things like that. And so the Amish community up there has some ambassadors. One of them is Lester. Is Lester still up there?
Not with Behold anymore, but he's in Sugar Creek now, actually.
Oh, okay. So one of the international people said, you Amish vote. He's like, no, but we pray Republic.
Mhm.
That should be a movie like.
Oh, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
There was a movie
That recently came out.
Sorry.
I think it focused more on the Masonite and women talking. the issues that are highlighted in these communities, do you sense an obligation to defend or make a comment or make them aware that this is how the world is viewing us? How does that play out?
You mean in like the media, how they're portrayed in the media?
Yeah, there's a movie, Women Talking. So basically the
Okay.
storyline is some guys came in the evening and raped the girls, the
Okay.
women. And then they form a caucus and decide, are we going to leave? Are we going to stay? Or are we going to report the issue to outside? So it's the debate around that.
A lot of them are aware how they are portrayed in the media. I mean, we have a lot of it here in the United States. There was Amish called like Amish in the City. There was all these different Amish Mafia. Honestly, like even when Amish in the City, which was one of the first shows, it was like a reality show where they took Amish from different areas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, like our community, and put them into an urban setting. I think it was LA, and had them, I mean, essentially they were actors. I mean, most of these folks were not even Amish, to be honest. Their parents left Amish and they just, portrayed they were, but they were even like that. I forget what media company has that, but they were aggressively trying to put ads in the budget to recruit people for shows like that. And again, kind of wrapping back around to the newspaper, we value our readership. I love the newspaper industry, but I'm community first. Our job, our principle is the community we serve, which is an Amish Mennonite community. That is first and foremost. The newspaper is the vehicle to get the information there. So when it comes to that, I'll turn down ads. I just turned down an ad today during a presentation, something that sounded suspicious until we do more research on it. Every book, we have a lot of book ads, like people publishing new books. Every book that is advertised in the budget, I review to ensure it meets the status of what our readers expect. They don't want violence. They don't want sex. They really don't want political. I mean, they do. They say they don't, but but by their rules, they don't want political. We won't allow that because it's not their sensibilities. So we put our readership, our audience first. And, I would encourage anyone to do that because that's your audience. I mean, I'll turn down a $2,000 ad to protect our audience. And we get a lot of suspicious ads. I mean, we have to look. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that are in trying to find wives with Amish ladies. And it's like, you have to read between the lines. You have to do your research. I mean, a lot of my time is just researching things like that, just to ensure we protect our audience. Because what we always hear about the budget, they say if they read in the budget, they think it's an endorsement. If there's an ad in the budget, it's an endorsement from the budget that it's safe. So we take that mantle very, very, very importantly and make sure what we put in advertising wise is going to be a credible business that has the best interests of our audience in mind. And if we lose money that week because we didn't have that ad, so be it. We'd rather protect our audience because that's who we serve.
Yeah, I just want to check.
Uh-huh.
Go through it and check whether it's right before, and do you discard some of that? And if it's not appropriate, and then secondly, why budget? If you can just come to that, why the name budget?
Sure. Well, I'll start with that. The budget, it was just a trendy name at the time in the 1890s, quite honestly. It was, there really is no necessarily meaning behind it. But content, yes, we do. So these scribes, each of those scribes went through an application process to be approved. And, the application included, their church oversight, their community, what groups they're affiliated with. Number one, just to make sure they're legitimate. We would do some background checks, calling those folks too, just to make sure that community wanted that person to write. But when it comes into the actual content, when those letters come in, which the letters will come fax and mail, number one, about 45%, 50% of our letters come via mail, probably about 40% via fax, and about 10% via email. Those will go to a copy editor who will read through. He's been with us for 40 years, has Amish background, knows the scribes, knows what's okay, We'll go through, eliminate anything. We have a lot of scribes out. They're very entrepreneurial, the Amish. So they like to try to sell things in their letters sometimes, you know, make it an ad. So we'll eliminate that. Anything that might be derogatory to another group, because they're people, you know, if they don't agree with what one church is doing down the road, they'll express that. We're not going to put that in, but we'll go through and do that. Then it's typeset. We have a whole team of typesetters, about 8 people that'll just sit there and type these letters, and then it gets proofed again against the original copy. Now, we're not going to, again, to bring up the New York Times, we're not going to clean up the letters to make them perfect. We want these to be true letters, like you're getting a letter from a friend, because someone in Maine is going to say something completely different than someone in Kentucky or Missouri. The slang, the language, and beyond that, kind of jumping all over, this is a second language to these folks. They speak Pennsylvania Dutch, which is a dialect of German, has some influences, Swiss and French, because that was the region they came from. So it's an oral language only, not written at all. So they learn Pennsylvania Dutch first. When they go to Amish school, because they have their own schools, parochial schools, they learn English in the schools. So it's a second language. So their writing, and this, you know, comes from them. They're writing Pennsylvania Dutch is going through their head while they're trying to write in English. So some of the words might be a little, sentence structure might be a little different. We don't change that because, again, the audience that's reading that is thinking that same way. And we want those flavor of those letters to come through. We want the slang. We'll clean up things to not make them sound ignorant by any means. I mean, we're going to put in the commas. We're going to apostrophes. They love run-on sentences. We clean those up. But when it comes to the wording of the letters, we don't mess with that because I want that flavor to come through, and they want it that way as well. I want it to read like you're getting a letter from a friend. And one thing, we do a lot of events, shows all over the country, and I go to all these events. And every event I go to, it's a common phrase that's used. They'll come up to me, Amish will come up to me and say, you know, I am so popular. And, you know, I'll ask them why, because I get over 700 letters in the mailbox every week. It's called the budget, because that's how they view it. They view it as friends. The Amish are such a small group originally, you know, like my great grandfather, I'm related to 7 different ways, just through different chains. That's how small it is. So the Amish were a very small group coming out of Europe and expanded to 380,000 people, but we all have that same story, and a lot of us related. I have over 50 writers that are my cousins in the paper, and only half of my lineage is Amish. So a lot of these other folks may have over 100, 200 cousins writing. So it's not only you're getting news from communities that are like-minded, you're getting news from your cousins, from people, you know, that you may know. You may have a friend that lives in that area. So it's their way of even keeping up with family. It's very unique. And I mean,
comment quickly on the dialect.
Sure.
So, you know, Amish don't live, they live apart from the world, but they don't live apart from other people. And so it's not like they have their little enclave that's physically separated. There'll be an Amish farm and then an English farm and then something else. So, you know, in a mix, they shop at stores,
Yep.
They go to doctors and things like that. They have their own schools, you know, and they have their own religious ceremonies at people's homes and things like that. But in Pennsylvania Dutch country, so, you know, the Amish, Mennonite, the Anabaptist religions, that's a religion. Pennsylvania Dutch is a culture. Like my father's family is Pennsylvania Dutch, right? And so the dialect and vernacular is like a shibboleth. It's like a code language that you're from these places. So, you know, like for example, if something is all used up, the phrase is, it's all, you know, the candy is all, the coffee is all, the eggs are all, you know, and things like that. Or, you know, it's like if something's messy, red up your room, you know, or if
it's morning, it's forenoon.
It's forenoon. Or if it's raining lately, it's spritzing.
Yep.
There's a little spritz out, you know, and so that's a way for people in the culture to connect with one another and also to be able to connect with their Anabaptist neighbors, whether they're Amish, Mennonite, Hutterite. And then, you know, the Mennonites are a little more modern, except for Old Order. So the Mennonites use computers, they drive cars and things like that. So that explains fax and email.
Yeah. Yes.
has a unique history.
Absolutely.
And they came from Europe and they settled here. And I think the history of Americans generally, along with that of the Amish people, is also unique and it enabled the laws and the culture and I suppose the formation of the Federation of States in the US all enable that for the Amish community to become what it is today. Are there similar communities? I've got two questions. Are there similar communities elsewhere in the world, Amish communities that have a similar trajectory as yours in other countries, perhaps? And do you have a competing title? Is there another title that competes against you?
There's outside of the United States, there are Amish in Canada, a limited. I think the last numbers were about 20,000, and there's a small community of Amish in Belize. There is some Amish, they're Amish / Mennonite in Mexico called Old Colony Mennonites, but there's a lot of talk because of back to COVID. A lot of the Canadian Amish were not really pleased with some of the government, some of their mandates with vaccination that they are considering settling in South America, but really outside of the North America continent right now, there really aren't any Amish. There's some similar groups. There's a group in Ukraine that is very similar to the Amish, but they're not quite. But so traditional true Amish, it's right now in North America. Ironically, I know a gentleman, Horse Progress Days, you'll see we do an official preview for that and getting kind of back to a potential new Amish settlement. There's a gentleman, they work with a lot of farmers and throughout Africa, bring in a lot of different countries. Usually about 30 countries come to Horse Progress Days to kind of learn, I guess not horse-powered equipment, ingenuities, because that's what the Amish are using. There's a gentleman now that's going in Holmes County from, I want to say Cameroon. I'm not sure exact. I should know the country. I can't think of what the country is. Either way, he is training to set up the first Amish church overseas and the first Amish church in Africa. Don't know if it's going to come to fruition. It's starting right now, but there is some talk of that. But right now, primarily just in the North America, predominantly the United States. And yes, we do have competition. There's another publication called De Butchoff, which means the budget in Pennsylvania Dutch. That's identical to ours. And it was actually started in our office in the 1970s by the Amish Steering Committee. It's kind of a governance for the old order sect of the Amish. And they didn't think we were doing it the right way. And they essentially took it to Lancaster County. So that's our main competition, but there is a lot. The Amish is a growing population. So in the last decade, there's probably been at least a dozen new publications targeting the Amish specifically that have popped up. So, 2 decades ago, we didn't have a lot of competition. Now we do. It's a little bit different, but we're the longest serving, and not that means anything. I mean, we have to keep evolving, keep changing, still keeping with the sensibilities of the Amish, but it's a little bit different now because right now the Amish population is set to double every 21 years. These facts are coming from Elizabethtown College in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. Back in the 70s, when my father left, he never joined, so he was never technically Amish. He left before he joined church. But when my father didn't join church, at the time, New York Times ran a front page article about this is the last generation of the Amish. There were less than 57,000 Amish at that time. Today, again, we're 380,000, and it's set to be at 500,000 within probably at that rate, less than 7 to 10 years. And the community continues to grow. Potentially in our lifetime, it could be over 1 million Amish in the United States.
So the Mennonite is a more global diaspora because the Mennonites do mission work to other places. So they take their religion to other places, whereas the Amish really kind of keep to themselves. It's one of the big differences between those two.
And yeah, and the Mennonites are worldwide. Quite a few, and in Africa, Europe, even to Asia a little bit now. South America, there's more Mennonites below the equator than are north of the equator. So there's a lot in South America as well.
And I correctly assume that the Amish don't believe in birth control.
That's tricky. They as in using any type of any type of prescription or anything. No, they will not.
Okay.
But they do their own way of family planning. Yeah.
They don't go to the
They're
doctor.
frugal people overall, so they're not going to exceed their resources. And the other thing is because they are primarily agrarian and home industry driven. And I explained this to you on the way down. Everything about Amish culture is about keeping the family together.
Yep.
The reason they don't have televisions is because if people are sitting around watching television, they're not talking to one another. The reason they don't have cars is because the car takes you away from the family to work, so you can't come home for lunch and things like that. So they use technology, like some Amish settlements allow you to use cell phones for your business, but you can't use it at home. You can't use it for entertainment. So in every settlement, it's very democratic in how they decide which set rules the settlement will have and everything else. And it actually is an anarchy. There is no central leadership.
Right.
You know, and so I know the word anarchy makes you think of, violence and chaos and stuff like that. Anarchy just means no leader. And so, I mean, and we could get into it, but it's just, the idea that you have all of these different settlements around the world, literally, that have their own unique way of kind of doing things, but it all derives from something. But this is something that brings them all together once a week.
Absolutely. And just one thing to piggyback on, they are nonviolent people. They're called non-resistant. They refuse to take up arms to protect themselves. They are completely non-resistant. They will sacrifice their lives for another. There's some pretty heart-wrenching stories even recently with there was a school shooting in one of the Amish schools, and they are a non-resistant people, both Mennonites and Amish. That's their big thing. They will not serve in war. They will serve in hospitals. They'll serve helping people out, but they will not take life. That's one of the major things knowing about the Amish and Mennonite non-resistance, because they believe Jesus turned the other cheek. That's what they firmly believe. Yes.
How do you aggregate resources?
Yeah. So with our advertising, we do have sales rep. We have a couple sales reps that we do target certain people we feel belong in the paper. That will get good results. A lot of our advertising, I can say, so fortunate, is organic. We have people that call in, email us. We want to get an ad in the budget. We do fairly well with our advertising. One thing that makes us different than most newspapers here in the States, we're content first. Any of those scribes, they send their letter in on time. If they're an authorized writer, it will go in that paper. So, if we're only 5% advertising, 10% advertising that week, it doesn't matter. Content driven first, so we have a kind of a backwards model than most newspapers, where it's ad driven, we're content driven. But we do well with ads. That if there's one thing that we are lacking is really being more aggressive in going out and pursuing ads. And we're taking some steps for that. But we for being fairly organic, it works pretty well. I do, as a publisher, I do a lot of the ad sales nationally. I'll travel around to the different communities. I do have local sales reps that cover our area for the local edition, also the national edition. But we do fairly well with that. Yes. You were waiting for this, Bill. So this is where we're located in Sugar Creek, Ohio. We've had a lot of consolidation with newspapers, Gannett and other companies buying up a lot of the newspapers here in the United States. And with that, a lot of press is shutting down. Right now in Ohio, there's not one printer that is able to print us and mail us, because we are 100% mailed through the United States Postal Service. So all our papers are going through the postal system. So I feel we're one of the best printers in the United States, and it's a Susquehanna Printing in Lancaster, PA. So that, as a car, 5 hours and 36 minutes away, we print. and we mail through Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, but we also have a truck that comes all the way back to our office with copies for our local area. So we do both of our publications. You'll see my other publication, the diary, there as well. We print that there as well, but that was primarily, that was started out in Lancaster, and it was there prior to our purchase. But yeah, so we print pretty far away, but couldn't ask for a better printer, and we make it work. We go to press on a Monday at 5 p.m. Prints overnight. We have copies at our office in Sugar Creek by 1:30 on Tuesday afternoon. So it's pretty efficient. They do all the mailing, sorting.
You email them the file.
Mhm.
They plate it, they print it, and then they take it to the post office here in Harrisburg, PA. So this company does not just the printing, but also the mail. So that's removed all that labor from your operation.
Exactly. Then our local papers in this geographic area, which would cover the Holmes County area, are trucked back on that Tuesday morning. And then we have exceptional dispatch, which means we have direct drop off to all our local post offices and all our newsstands. So every local person within about a 50 to 60 mile radius will have their paper on Wednesday morning in their mailbox. So it's pretty interesting to print 6 hours away on a Monday evening and have full delivery locally by, Wednesday morning first thing. So yes. So right now our subscription fee, we are $59 a year. We with the cost of postage, the United States is increasing postage every 6 months right now. We've seen a 30% increase over the last, it's only been 14 months we've seen, or 16 months. We've seen almost a 30% increase in postage. Paper's up. So that price keeps on. We try to, like most newspapers, we try to make our money on the advertising, break even with our printing or our with our subscriptions. But even COVID kind of changed that for us, where we need to make a little bit on our subscriptions now, just to offset some of the advertising we did lose. It's coming back really strong. We're doing really well with that, but we've kind of changed our model a little bit. But with those costs of postage and paper, we foresee increases regularly. Before, we didn't increase more than a few, maybe a time every 3 or 4 years. But people understand. I mean, how can you get? I mean, on average, we're around 76 pages a week total with our total product, and you're getting it into your mailbox for about $1.05. In America's economy, that's a pretty good value.
And like many media companies, they've diversified in some pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, absolutely. We up until 2018, we would just have the one publication, the budget, the local and the national. In there you will see the diary, which is a monthly publication. The one I spoke about, that's out of Lancaster, PA. This is a smaller one. Right now we're averaging about 160 pages a month on this guy, very similar to the budget. It's different because it's more of a conservative piece. The budget is allowed in house homes from the very conservative all the way up to Mennonites who are driving vehicles. So it's a very broad brush. Without getting into it too much, it's a little bit vanilla, as in we don't put anything controversial in the letters. We'll take it out because it's such a wide range of folks that are reading it. This is, probably the most conservative publication, probably the most conservative publication for the Amish. It is old order only, mostly the Lancaster groups, it's just a little bit different. And this reaches into markets that the budget doesn't necessarily reach into, or places where we don't have strong circulation. So when this came available, this was my other favorite publication even before we owned it for the Amish. So when this came available, because my friend owned it and he offered it to me, and when he offered to me on the phone, I started crying because it's something I always wanted to have under our umbrella. But it's a lot of content. It's a lot like the budget. It's organized a certain way. You'll see there's not a lot of advertising. The reason is, quite frankly, a lot of people don't see a big return on it because a lot of these people are they don't have a lot of money. They're they're kind of the lower end of the Amish. So we're kind of fulfilling that need as well in that community.
The old order sect also is very, very big on self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
So they don't buy a lot.
Yeah. And
As opposed to some of the others.
mhm. This group, the people that are going to read this tend to be a lot more agrarian. The budget, again, it's a wide range. It's from the most conservative to the most progressive on the Amish, but you see less agrarian with the more progressive they are. They tend to be more into starting their own businesses, into furniture making, things like that, where the traditional old order, you're going to see still a lot of agrarian and being more self-sufficient, like Bill was saying. So we took this over in 2018. And the beauty of it, I wish I could have planned it this way, our 3 slowest months for revenues for the budget are the 3 highest months for revenue for the diaries. It's a perfect mix. We held an office out in Lancaster, which you've seen where we printed. That's where I had a satellite office out there where we did this. October of this past year, I brought it back to Sugar Creek, so we do it in the budget office just to kind of create efficiencies. We have some great team members at the budget. We have about 19 employees, and a lot of them are fantastic, and I felt they wanted to grow with the company, so give some more leverage for us to be able to promote within and be able to do better to our employees, take care of them a little bit better. So we brought it in-house, and we're really, really pleased to have this. Ties me into our newest acquisition, and this one is so fun. So the harmonicas you see, or the harps, or mouth organs, or whatever you want to call them. You're looking at the ad, you'll see the ad in the diary. So this is something that we've took on in January. So one of our best budget advertisers, his name was Andy Weaver. He was up in Northern Ohio. He started his company in 1958. He retired in 2022, 65 years running his own company. The only place he advertised was the budget. He's been a partner with us since day one for him, while he's in his young 20s. So in his late 80s, when it was time to retire, I've been kind of putting bugs in his ear for the last 4 or 5 years. If you ever want to sell, let us know. He approached me. So what that acquisition is he had a catalog where he promoted his wares, one of which are harmonicas. The catalog, and he had a mailing list of 80,000 folks, Amish and Mennonite predominantly. So we took that on, that we can rent out. So we added our diary and budget subscription list into that mailing list. Since we acquired that, we have 98,000 unique addresses that are clean, no duplicates. Everything is accurate in the United States of Amish and Mennonite folks that we can rent out to people. So it's pretty much passive income for us, where someone they have to go through our printing press in Lancaster. So if they want to mail out a catalog for those 98,000, they need to send it to our printing press. Our printing press will manage the mail it out for them. They have to pay all that. And we charge a flat fee per 1,000 on that mailing list. So it's no work on our end on the passive income. The catalog, which we're getting going, is not only a catalog promoting what we sell, but it's a catalog that we can sell advertising into, because we get 98,000 households. It gets inserted in the budget, which we control. We don't have to pay for that insertion fee other than the mailing. And in turn, we promote our new line, which is harmonicas. Andy H. Weaver was the largest Hohner harmonica dealer in the United States. So we just took that on. And we're not into retail, we're publishers, right? So how do we do this? I have a good friend, one of our good advertisers, an Amish gentleman, who runs, his wife started this fabric store, one of the top fabric stores in the Amish community throughout the United States. He wanted to retire. He was a executive at a cabinet factory. He wanted to retire a little early because he wanted to help his wife at her store that she built up. 51 years old. He came into the business and said he got bored because his wife just knew how to run the business and he didn't really have much to do. So I asked him, hey, do you want to sell harmonicas? So now his name's Ivan Miller. He takes all the phone orders. He fulfills the harmonicas. He mails them out. He's Amish, so he can speak Pennsylvania Dutch to people. He's well known in the community, so he's a good face for that company. And we own the company. We do the ordering. We take the financial liability. but he kind of fulfills everything and we share in the profits. So it's a nice mix, because with the harmonicas, why the harmonicas? The harmonica is the only instrument that is universally accepted by the Amish. No other instrument will be universally accepted. Some Amish may be permitted to play a guitar or, you know, maybe a piano, but even the conservative Amish are allowed to play the harmonica. So it is a universally accepted instrument for the Amish, and the only one in some sects. So I often joke, a gentleman who's a good subscriber of the Budget in the Diary, he called me a few weeks ago. He's from Missouri, you know, central United States. He called me and said, Milo, you're a part of my every evening. Do you realize that? I said, why? He goes, you have my three favorite hobbies: reading the Budget, reading the Diary, and playing the harmonica now. So I almost feel like we're no longer just a publishing company, we're an entertainment company for the Amish. We have the music, we have, you know, the material where they're getting information, but they read the Budget for enjoyment too. There's anecdotal stories, there's funny things they can relate to. So now we have this mix of three different things that just broadens our umbrella and keeps us relevant. And, you know, the thing is, we're not just going to sit on our laurels with the Budget. It's always been this way for 133 years. We continue to change, add things. That's, again, why we even do events. You know, I'll go to shows in Missouri, go to shows in Kentucky, Michigan, wherever. And I'm there to sell subscriptions and talk with our customers, but I'm also there to get a understanding of what's going on in the community, what's trending, what they desire, what they want in the paper. I'll ask point blank to them, what do you like about what don't you like about the Budget? What don't you enjoy? What do you wish you see more of? What would you like? And those things I'll take back to our team, sit down and see, is this feasible? We won't do everything, but we'll try things. You know, that's the beauty of print. You know, our ownership group is not involved with print. They've been with the Amish, they've dealt with Amish for a century, their family, but they think outside the box, because what we say is, we can change something in the Budget one week, and if we get pushback, it's not right, or we don't like it, guess what? We can change it back next week. It's a living creature. So we treat it that way. It's like, why not try something new? A lot of the things we tried worked out really well, and they're still a part of the Budget today. Other things didn't work out very well, and we just changed it back. So we really, but first and foremost, oh, sorry.
Why? No, it's good. I just want to make sure you get to the Sarasota point.
Oh yeah.
The loyalty people have for this publication is astounding.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reminding me. So in this, like most people, you know, people like to, up here in the Northeast, central Midwest, like to get away for winter if they can, because it can be cold and brutal. The Amish are no exception. There's a small little community in Sarasota, Florida. It's a larger city in Florida that is predominantly Amish. They go down there in the winter. They own homes down there, and they sell. I mean, it becomes like a ghost town where I think their permanent population in that community is around 200 people during the summer. In the winter, thousands of Amish are flooded down in that community. So, and most of those Amish are receiving the Budget. So rather than, they're not getting it at home anymore, how do they get it? We have a bus that goes down to Sarasota every day in the winter that takes Amish back and forth. So we load up papers on that bus and gets trucked down to Sarasota. And there's a gentleman from Delaware who sells the Budget off of the bus. In a 5-minute window, when that bus arrives, it's flooded parking lot, hundreds of people waiting for the bus to arrive, not only to see who's coming off the bus, but get the Budget. And 300 copies of the Budget are usually sold out in under 5 minutes. They just line up to get their copies of the Budget so they can read in Sarasota, Florida. So it is truly a passion for people. I mean, they can't live without their Budget. I received a call the other day from a friend who was meeting with a predominant Amish gentleman in Holmes County for dinner, and he said, it was Wednesday night. He's like, you know, you're a really good friend. You know why? Wednesday night's pizza night, but you're not allowing us to visit with our best friend. Like, what do you mean your best friend? The Budget. The Budget's sitting here. We can't read it because you're here, but we're glad you're here. That they're so dedicated to reading the Budget because it's almost a rite of passage for the community. They've done it for generations. So we feel a sense of obligation. You know, it's not just to us, it's just not a newspaper. Again, we're community first. We understand the impact this has on the community and the need, you know, again, like with COVID, getting, you know, information across to people and the marketplace too. I mean, a lot of our ads are mail order because some of these people live miles from the nearest town and they can't, you know, they can't drive. They can't get in a car and drive. You know, some Amish aren't even permitted in a car. They rely on mail order to get certain things. So it's truly a unique paper. And one of the best parts about it, and one of the most challenging parts about it, there's no other newspaper like us in the country. So there's no model to follow. So we create our own models. We create our own efficiencies, which keeps us sharp, can create some challenges at times, but it's, you know, that's why I tell our team all the time. I said, there's no playbook. There's no guidebook for us to follow to do this. We're doing our own thing. So, you know, and now other publications are using our guidebook to do it because they're copying off of us, which is flattering and frustrating at the same time. So wanted to show that before I forget, the paper you're holding here, this edition here, this is all the letters that came in for that paper. These are all one edition. That's the one in front of you. That's all the letters.
It's all handwritten stuff, eh?
On the the scribes might mistakenly send to something that's century one.
Oh, you know, like the system of making sure that a due letter. We sometimes we have duplicates, very, very rarely, but we mark them by, they have to put the date they submitted. And of course, their location, their name. So we have that registered. So if it pops up that we start typing that, it'll show it's already been done, because they have a tendency of faxing their letters like 3 or 4 times and they all look the same, you know, so it does happen from time to time and it can be challenging. We have a checkbox too. So literally it's an old fashioned, we have all the names down. We have someone that goes through and, you know, like here, Lily Burkholder, he'll go down, you know, from Scottsville, Kentucky. She sent her letter and checked, it's here. So if we get another one, we know it's either a duplicate or it's for the next week.
All these letters that have been written, I think you've got a standard
Mhm.
on which they have to handwrite,
Mhm.
which means you've got a team of people to transcribe this
Correct.
electronically.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
It's amazing. I mean, that's speaking volumes.
Absolutely.
Send your information, your pages to the printer.
Just an FTP site. So we upload to their site and then they pull off, we approve, then they pull off and make the plates.
The newsroom is 100% modern. They have
Yeah.
modern computers, they use modern technologies.
Okay.
The audience is the ones who are technology averse. That's one of the reasons why he's not Amish.
Right. And so none of our staff is Amish. We do have some staff that are Mennonite, but yeah, because of the technology, we're not. I'm the perfect blend though. That's what made me attracted to come and do this, because I had no journal. I don't have a journalism bone in my body, quite frankly. I'm actually dyslexic. So it's like, I'm not a journalist. You know, I came from the business world, you know, going through business school. My father was Amish, but see, that's where the community views me as a part of their community, because I've had that heritage, but I did not choose to leave the Amish. My father chose to leave the Amish. So
Anabaptist means you are baptized again. Because they reject the notion that a child can accept the faith. So, you know, the infant baptism is common. They view that as not. You have to choose to join. Like one of the other ambassadors up there said, if you get baptized without having Jesus in your heart, then you just have a wet forehead.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like you have to choose to join the church. Not everybody does. But you're still a member of the family.
Yeah.
Right? Because you come from this family. So it's not like if you don't join the church, they cut all ties with you. And so, like I said, the Pennsylvania Dutch culture and the Amish culture they share that same culture. It would be similar to in in South Africa of people from from the same tribe, from the same ethnicity, but having two different religions. Okay, one's Methodist, one's Presbyterian, that kind of thing. Are they going to not talk to each other? Are they going to not love one another? Of course not. Okay, so just because somebody doesn't join the church doesn't mean that they're ostracized from the group.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, good point. So with that, with my family is a fairly well-known family in the Amish community. So with that, my name was my grandfather's name, which was a bishop, and that same name, Milo Miller's, there's like 5 of us, 6 of us with that same name after my grandfather, but it's a very well-known person in the community. So I carry that on. They recognize that I'm a part of their shared history, a part of their story, but I'm just not a part of their faith. And it was my father who made that choice. I didn't make that choice. So they accept me for who I am. And, you know, they treat me just like Bill said, essentially a part of their family. I'm just not a part of necessarily their religious group.
They have a tradition, room spring.
Mhm.
And so when you turn, is it 16?
Yeah, it's very 15.
But anyway, yeah, when you basically become a teenager of certain biological abilities, you're given an opportunity to experiment with the whole world. Okay, it's called Rumspringa, and it's basically go check things out, go see what things are before you decide to join the church. But also before you leave the family, go see what the world is like, you know. And vast majority of them go out, they have a great time, and then they come back and join the church because they're like, you know, it's missing that community, it's missing that. I hate to use the word simplicity, but it is simple, and that sense of community. I mean, it's like I explained to you the other day. If a barn burns down, the materials are assembled. Everybody in the community comes up and they build the barn in a single day.
Yeah,
that's that type of culture. So you don't have to worry about what am I going to do? I'm injured. I can't milk my cows. Don't worry, the cows will get milk.
Yeah.
The fields will get harvested. Things will get done because of the way the community is built.
And they don't participate in some of our like the Social Security, which is essentially kind of a retirement. They do not participate. They do not get health insurance. They help each other out when the need comes up. They share their money to help people that may need medical assistance. You know, they like to take care of each other, but they don't want to be reliant necessarily on the government either. You know, they don't want, when it came to like some of our COVID relief funds, even for businesses, would not take it. Funny story with the diary. So the government sent checks out to a vast majority of Americans, you know, for a relief fund to help them out during COVID. One of our subscribers sent that check to us and put donation. It was made out to them. We couldn't do anything with it. Donation. It was a check of $12,000 from the government because they wouldn't take it. So they just put donation and sent it to us. We had to send it right back to them. But that, I mean, they will not take handouts like that. They want to be self-sufficient, and they want to, you know, they rely on their community. And, you know, I love what Bill said. It's exactly true with the horse and buggy. They're not anti-car. They just know if they have a car, they can drive 100 miles, 500 miles a day and not be back in time for dinner that night at their house. The horse and buggy prevents them from doing that. They're not most of them aren't anti-technology. They don't think it's evil, but they always say there's stuff on there that can be evil. So we don't want to put ourselves in the risk of doing something that could be wrong.
So many of the farms, the electricity to the house, no. But if it's a dairy farm where you have to keep the milk refrigerated, there really is no viable option to keep large volumes of milk refrigerated except electricity. They're allowed to have electricity to the barn.
Yeah.
Now, occasionally, they know how to work a loophole.
They do.
So occasionally there'll be a refrigerator in the barn and a washing machine in the barn, but it's very well hidden.
Or maybe a radio to listen to the baseball game.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we shipped grade B milk in milk cans to a cheese manufacturer. And because we had a truck, there was an Amishman who would hire us to pick up his 5 cans of milk every other day. And they were stored in these big cold water refrigerants. This is old technology. So you'd open the lid to pull the tanks out, and floating in among the milk cans was, you guessed it, cans of Budweiser. So, but I'm not saying that's common. I'm not saying that's common, but they're people.
I was gonna say, bottom line is they're people just like any of us, and they're under a microscope because, I mean, television, news, anything negative happens in the community, that they go straight to the front of the line because a lot of people just view this as like this perfect culture, perfect society. And they're the first ones to say, we're not perfect. I mean, there has been, there for a while, there was an increase in suicides amongst the Amish. And now there's mental health facilities that the Amish have put in place. And they even recognize we did not deal with this like we should have, so they're people, but yeah.
But the community generally tries to help.
Yep.
If they notice something's wrong,
They will step. Absolutely. And they will call, if there's something egregious, they will call the authorities too. I mean, they're not going to protect their own for the sake of just protecting their own. If something's wrong, they will address it.
There was a major scandal about, was it the beard cutting? Was that 15 years ago?
About 10 years ago.
15 years ago, where some very, very radicalized Amish men felt some other Amish men were not being devout enough. And so they would go to their homes, hold them down and cut off their beards, which is extraordinarily, that's an extreme violation.
Yeah.
So, but they ended up going to prison. They called the authorities on them and the police came and.
Yeah.
Start with the weather.
Exactly. That is a very common thing. It's not, we don't tell them how to start. We limit the size of the letters. We tell them, put your most important news at the front of the letter because we will cut it after 10 inches. So they have, or 10 and a half inches they have to work with, but they tend to like to lead with the weather. They like to lead with, it is.
How's the weather in your farm? That's
Yeah. So, yeah. So we don't really limit what they put in. I mean, it's their space. We tell them, I mean, as long as it follows our guidelines and it's, they can put a whole listing of everyone who visited church if they wanted to. We'll put it in.
Occasionally you'll read one about somebody was conspicuously absent.
Yeah.
We don't know why. But I mean, the content is objectively phenomenal. I mean, it is really, there's not much excitement in there.
Right.
But it's, I don't know, it helps them connect with, it is a diaspora. It was originally a forced diaspora. They were kicked out of places for religious persecution.
Yeah.
Now it's a diaspora mostly of choice.
Right.
So they're separated by choice, but they still want to maintain that common connection.
Yep, absolutely.
So your competitors produce more or less the same content. Because I mean, what you mentioned about some of the social ills that everyone goes through, that you use your discretion during COVID, for example, to say this is important enough for us to have to address it. So when there were mental health issues or those started coming up, I would imagine that would also, I mean, saying this is like considered a Bible from what you said, so to speak.
We will. Yeah. When it comes to things like that, I do talk a lot of times. First I'll talk with the other owners of the company, if there's something that could be controversial. And then I also have a few selected individuals who are very prominent in the Amish community that I will talk with before I make any decisions like that. Like when it came to COVID, I actually spoke with the Ohio director of the Amish steering committee. He's a good friend of mine. Bounce ideas off. What do you think? Is this going to help you? Because he had to make the decision to close down Amish churches in Ohio. He got so much pushback from the community. He almost resigned because he cut it out for 2 weeks. But I have kind of an inner circle of people I will talk with to decipher, because honestly, we're the only ones that will do that. Some people call us liberal because of the things we do put in there, because there are some publications that have copied us that just do letters or just do Amish letters. We're the only one, again, that'll do from the most conservative Amish all the way up to the most progressive Mennonite. Well, not most progressive, but progressive Mennonite. So the other publications strictly are just Amish. So they're pretty much just doing letters. We do a little bit more than that. So, and again, we'll try something, but when it comes to something that may be controversial in the church, I always run it up the flag, or, talk to other people about it, including ownership and other folks in the community, just to make sure, they would agree with that. And I take, I'll listen to them as final judgment, So we everything we do in there is intentional, that's the thing. So we make one mistake, we could lose 1,000 subscribers in a day.
Groceries and stuff.
Grocery store.
Grocery store.
You go to the Walmart, and you'll see a horse and buggy outside the Walmart.
Yep.
No, 100%.
Yeah, they'll shop pretty much anywhere we will as well. There's really no difference. They'll interact with English all the time. It's just, again, it was just, I think Bill had it perfect. It'd even be like your neighbor might be Catholic and, you may be a non-believer. You're still going to talk to your neighbor and spend time with, it's the same thing. Yeah.
They are excellent builders. And they usually do really good quality work at really reasonable prices. And so an Amish construction crew is well sought after. Well, a construction crew needs tools. A construction crew needs a way to haul materials. So generally what they do is they hire an English, usually a retiree who likes to drive and likes to hang out with them. They'll buy the van, they'll buy the truck. So the truck is owned by the Amish because it's a work truck, but they can't drive it. So they hire somebody to be their driver. And the power tools they use are just, they like their battery powered DeWalt tools as much as anybody else, but they charge the electricity in the barn or in the workshop, not in the home. So, it's mostly what they do is the home is really where you see most of the technological restrictions.
In business, you will see Amish using computers, if it's a business. I mean, they'll be limited again, most of the Amish, they say they have they'll call it a word processor, but it's a full-fledged computer. They can even do email, but they're probably not going to be able to go online and do any searching or anything, but they can access email, maybe, have download instruction, whatever the case may be, but they're not going to have that in the home. It's going to be in the business only. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the debate about whether to go digital or not?
Absolutely. So it was a constant discussion. We did have a website for about a decade. And it was a pretty just limited website, and it was focusing more on the local news. It actually made international news. People from England to Japan to Russia, all through the United States, AP picked it up about how the Amish newspaper was online. This was, I think we went online about 2007, 2008. And it did, I mean, we weren't even selling advertising. It was just for our local community to provide news. We did not put any of the letters, any of the national edition content online whatsoever, only local news. And it was okay. And then in 2016, we made a push. Let's do a full interactive website, maybe, sell advertising. Maybe this becomes our local edition and we just have the national and this is something completely separate. So we went for it and it did well. We did pretty well in advertising. But what I noticed is our national circulation numbers started to kind of tick down a little bit. And I think it was, when was it? Fall of 2018. So we were, about 2 years into our new website. I got a few letters from Wisconsin of some readers. We heard the budget's online. We're going to cancel our subscription. And it wasn't. I mean, it was local news, but perception is reality because they have no access to go online to see if it's true or not. So even though I wrote them and said, we have a website, but it's just for local content, none of the national edition stuff's on there. They responded, I did it very nicely. Any note that comes across my desk sidebar, I do respond to. That's something I will make time every Friday or Saturday, whenever I'm in the office. If it takes 5 hours, I'll respond to every person, handwritten note, because that stuff retains customers, believe it or not, at least with our audience, it does. Anyway, I got a response back. Well, we don't want the budget online at all. And then I got another note. I'm like, oh my goodness, this something that we see as a positive for our local community is actually hurting us. So on January 1st of 2019 or December 31st of 18, I pulled the plug on the website. And again, our circulation just, because that first issue in January, I have a publisher's corner on page 2 of the National where I just write about whatever that certain week. And
they were concerned that their information was going
correct.
on the internet, which was
They didn't want.
against their Super Bowl.
So I went out, just blasted it a few times. the budget, you know, in a nice way, just kind of remind the budget is not online, you know, we're print only, we'll always be print only, because it was on a letter. So I responded to a letter in the paper, and instantly we just seen our numbers go like this. And ever since then, our numbers have crept up. So put it this way, I can't say we'll never have a website, but we'll only have a website when it's permissible by the Amish to have a website. And it's only helped us cut costs and driven our subscription.
And now you don't have any website, right?
No, we have a landing page just because our you know, it says something to the effect, for more information about the budget, call our office.
But
And
it says the budget does not have a website.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
Space here, can you explain that?
That is for the mailing address. So that's exactly how it's mailed. So we'll laser imprint the address, so that, because that's 100% mailed as well. And also on the budget, if you see, sorry to steal yours, right here, that's where the address goes as well. Yes, thank you. So also in there, you'll see a program, Horse Progress Days. This, I call, for Americans would get this probably more than the rest of the world, but I call it the Amish Super Bowl. This is like the biggest event for the Amish community in the United States. It's an annual event that travels to 5 different states, 6 different localities. And
Rotates every, so 1 year to Pennsylvania, the next year Ohio, so it's not held 5 times a year, but it moves every year to a different state.
Yep, thank you. And it's an event that they draw, well, when it was in Ohio 2 years ago, they had 38,000 Amish attend this event. They'll get a driver to bring them, or they'll take a bus. Some will take Amtrak if it's close. But they'll come, and it's essentially, it was based to be showing technology of horse-powered farm equipment. Now it's just it's mostly agrarian, but there's even what they call like a homemaker's area, a place where they show how to make candles, how to jar, can, and all that stuff, to, you know, sheep herding, to produce growing. It is the biggest event for the Amish community. So in 2015, the previous publisher of the publication, Keith Rathbun, and I, we put our heads together about pitching 2013, pitching to Horse Progress Days to do the official preview. So since that time, we've been the official publisher of this preview. So again, it's finding those fits in our community. So we're the longest serving publication for the Amish. Why shouldn't we do the program for the biggest, you know, event for the Amish? It's a perfect marriage, perfect fit. Advertising strong. You know, last year that was an 80-page piece. I was running 70% paid advertising. So good revenue, and we're getting the information out. And beyond that, how we pitch it is not everyone in our budget circulation is going to go to Horse Progress Days, but they're all interested in about, I mean, not every, you can't say every, but most Amish will want to be at a Horse Progress Day sometime in their life. It's a destination. So if they can't go, they can get a glimpse of it this way. And so it's even relevant to those folks who aren't going. On top of that, we're the only media supplier that's permitted to distribute material at Horse Progress Days. So we have places throughout the grounds where we keep these out. We usually go through about 3,000 to 4,000 at the event. You know, what we also do to help Horse Progress Days, it's all a mix. We donate 5% of the revenue to Horse Progress Days. They're a nonprofit, so we're helping them to sustain. We get a free premium booth at the event. They give us a free ad in their other program that they mail out. So it works both ways. And when this comes out, this is an annual preview, wherever that local event's held at. So this year it's in northern Indiana in a place called Shipshewana. In that community, we take 2 zip codes and we do what we call like a total market coverage. We'll send everyone in those 2 zip codes a free copy of the budget with a circular that's promoting the budget at a discount price. Hey, give us a try. And the Horse Progress Days previews in there, so they know what's coming in their community in 2 weeks. So it's promoting the event in the local community. Hopefully it doesn't ruffle feathers, because literally 30,000 people coming in a community of 2,000. So they know what's going on, what to expect. It's promoting our piece. It's promoting them, you know, and it's a win-win all the way around. So those are the things that we try to look at when it comes to special sections. Like, what's a fit not only for us where we can make money It's about what's a fit for our audience. What do they want to see? Because if they want to see it, the ads are going to work and advertisers are going to continue to, support it. So that's our success story there. There's another publication I put there, which is our Ohio Amish Business Directory. Easiest thing to put together ever. All it is we provide free, there's listings of businesses throughout Holmes County, which is where we're at, Tuscarawas County, of Amish-based businesses. The listings we provide completely free to each of the businesses, so they promote where they're at, what they do, etc. Then outside that is the ad. So if they do an ad, with their listing, we say, see our ad on page whatever, but the content's easy to draw because it's just a business listing, completely free, no obligation, and it gets us in the door. So we go get the listing and say, hey, I'm such and such with the budget. Here's something free we're going to give you. And oh, by the way, if you want to do an ad in this or in the budget, here's some information along the way. We get our content. We get good advertising revenue out of that, usually 48 to 56 pages every year out of that. Editorial doesn't have to touch it. It's all 100% advertising piece. And if we do it in the dead of winter, when it's slow for us is when we build that up. And we're at the same time, we're starting to work on our Horse Progress Days preview. We just put that, we're going to bed in a week and a half on that, but we're selling that during our slower times as well. So a lot of, that one you can't control because when the event is, but we're very strategic when we do things. It's like we don't have downtime. January and February, March tend to be a little slower in the industry. We find things like the business directory and Horse Progress Days and things to do in those slower times. So, when
you've been doing it now for how many years?
So this will be our 10th year.
You're doing it. So, a lot of repeat advertising.
Mhm.
You already have, they're gonna be at the event, they want to be at, like Pioneer Equipment.
Yep.
One of the largest manufacturers of horse equipment in the world. And the Amish farmers, they need good equipment. Equipment wears out. And so many people think horse farming is you're using old antiquated equipment that was dragged out of the woods somewhere and rebuilt. No, this is brand new, very well engineered, highly efficient equipment that, they need. And then there's always demonstrations of new things, and like Horse Progress Days, they have the equipment demonstrations and things like that. And so these are valuable customers for advertisers. But the first one was the hard one.
That was absolutely.
The second one was a lot easier because you already had, hey, you want to be in the next one? You want to be in the next one?
Yeah. It's probably about 7. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're good.
Just on that as well. I want to ask earlier on, what's your staff complement and the people that actually put all of this together? And also, how did you navigate technology advancing? So it was probably you started off with equipment and technology, and then it started becoming better. How did you navigate? And did you have to let go of people? Did they phase out? Because things became fast. I'm looking at your layout. It's just inserting text. It just flows. There's no pretty much layout fees or anything like that. It's programmed. Obviously, you didn't start there. You had to start with lead and setting.
Absolutely.
So how did you kind of weather that out?
Well, it was honestly before my time. I started in 2005 with the budget, and we were already in, computer mode with that. But from what I've researched, we've never had to let anyone go because of technology upgrade. And we've tried to stay. Again, we're all non-Amish that work at the paper, so a lot of people say that we're probably far more advanced than a lot of newspapers are. And with all we do, we need to be, putting out 76 pages in a week, even though it's straight text. We need to have sometimes the latest and greatest technology to get there. So our staff right now is trending very young. We have some folks that have been there 40 plus years. It's just a handful, and the rest tend to be 40 or 45 and under. So they're pretty tech savvy. So we've done pretty well. We've weathered that storm pretty well. I'm sorry, what was your first question? I apologize. How many people? So full-time, I have 15, including myself, about 4 part-time, and quite a few stringers and independent contractors, drivers and different things like that. Yes. Well, it's we were once a lot larger. We've shrunk down. Pretty much this is out of our press. This is their standard size that they use for their daily newspaper. So quite honestly, it fits to what we wanted, but because this is their most mass produced, their paper pricing is pretty good because they buy so much quantity of this, because they do their daily in Lancaster, which is fairly large. I think it's about 50-60,000. And they do other,
Regular local newspaper.
yeah. So it is their standard stock. So it works, and it's not far off what we used to. We used to be 32 inches wide. We used to be a big guy. Yeah.
By the way, the printer they use is the same printer that does the Lancaster farming, the big farm paper.
Yeah. And that printer owns Lancaster Farming as well. So great company to work with. One thing I forgot to mention, just tying back to the harmonicas, forgot to mention this. On the harmonicas, the beauty of not only having the harmonicas is we have the medium to advertise the harmonicas to the Amish. Since we have the largest circulating Amish newspaper and a monthly publication, minimal cost to promote a product that we sell. So like, especially on a lighter week, if we don't have enough, I always have a standard double truck ready to go that we can just drop right in. And so it's like, even if I need to jump up 4 pages, or if I'm just light with content, I can drop this in and it's not a waste of money. I'm going to get results off of that. So it's creating those synergies and knowing your audience and knowing what to do, what do they need? And we're not going to stop on harmonicas. We continue to look at other avenues, what we can bring under the umbrella or what else we can sell. Because now we have a model that works on retail sales. We have someone who can distribute, who can take calls, who can speak Pennsylvania Dutch, who's a part of the community, and he wants to grow. So guess what? We're looking for other products that are needed in the community that we can put with harmonicas and just continue to grow that segment. So again, we're kind of, we're just kind of creating this whole thing where we can be not all things to the Amish community, but where we can be viable, and if something's going to not do well, if we get into a recession, maybe the harmonicas don't do well, we still have the budget, or if the budget's not doing well for a season, we have this other, and, so we're looking how we can diversify, but also just kind of grow that brand and again, serve a community that we value so dearly. Again, the paper is just a vehicle. We're community first, being our community that, gets the budget. This is just the vehicle, how it works to get them the information that they desire. It's their newspaper.
I'm actually reminded that where we come from,
Mhm.
there is a community.
It's similar to the Amish in KwaZulu-Natal, Wasingabantu, and they actually have I think they were influenced largely by German missionaries.
Okay.
And they have a radio station, a local radio station, which is one of the longest running community radio stations.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know, I've never heard of a community radio station. And in fact, one of the sustainable things that they've done is they have one of the largest bottled water brands in our country, Aquili.
Wow.
Water. It comes from there,
Huh.
which is a national water brand. But my last question is, there are people like you who are not part of the religion, but are part of the family, as you've said.
Mhm.
And I imagine they would be all over.
Mhm.
Have you ever considered perhaps an email newsletter version for that particular market only?
We talked about doing even a digital version of the paper to folks that maybe aren't living close, or that are, or even locals who moved away to different places. And we're still considering it, but we keep on getting a little nervous just because of the reaction to having an internet, having a website, because for most of the Amish, they're a digital publication to an email and a website, to them, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. They think it's one and the same. So even as much as we can educate them, anything digital can scare off some of our readers. So we've talked about it, but we're still a little, we're not quite there yet, but we've talked about it. And I like the idea of a newsletter that's even completely separate, that we can even offer potentially to, non-paper, paper subscribers that would be even named something different. So it's not even tagged with the budget, but the budget's value, the name of the budget is so known in the community. It's we just don't want to do anything to jeopardize that brand.
I mean, in our industry, we're lamenting the death of print, and here's a model where print is the only thing that people want. And they really are averse to the digital transition, so it's, again, know what your audience wants. There are audiences that want that print product for any number of reasons. And we were talking earlier today in the side, what is the single most secure form of communication? It can't be tracked, can't be traced, your information can't be grabbed and consolidated. Print. The print newspaper is not traceable by the internet. Facebook doesn't know who's reading, what's reading. They can't target an ad to you in the newspaper, right? And a newspaper can be handed from person to person to person, and that transaction is not traced at all. So, if you have a community that's concerned about digital security, they don't want to share stuff online because they don't trust it, and they're right not to, push print as your secure means of communication.
And what also it has done, we actually have quite a few non-Amish subscribers as well, because they love the idea of what a newspaper kind of once was, or with the content in it. It's good news. We're also known, a lot of people call us the good newspaper, because you're not reading about war, you're not reading about violence. There's human struggles. People that are ill, people that pass away, or incidences, but it's not political. It's people. Actually, we have quite a few non-Amish that get it just because they like the vibe of it. It makes them feel like there's hope in society.
Home County is predominantly Amish. There's a lot of agriculture, and there's a lot of home craft industries and stuff like that. But tourism is a huge part, right? So let's go to Amish country, right? And hi, so look at the Amish. Ain't they cute? Let's get a keepsake newspaper to take home with us. Sales.
Absolutely.
Single copy sales for the tourists who are coming through who don't know anything, but they're like, look at this quaint little newspaper we could take home.
Yep.
Sorry to generalize, but that's
It's a lot of truth.
I'm from Pennsylvania. It's the Lancaster County Amish.
Yeah.
Annoyed by New Yorkers, Philadelphia. Where are the tall buildings?
Yes.
How do you maintain your business on Facebook, for example? I see you have 12,000 followers on Facebook.
We do very little. What we do is, mostly local events, some sports. We don't really promote it much more than, in the paper, a little bit on our local edition. It doesn't touch our national edition at all. And we don't necessarily promote that. Our local edition team, they kind of maintain that. And it's mostly around, like this upcoming Monday being a Memorial Day, a federal holiday. We'll have a few photos from one of the local parades. It's more interaction, but we don't monetize it. It's more or less, I let our local editorial team, I moderate it too, but we don't drive any sales or anything with it. It was more out of demand from local community to have it. But we have a lot of people from outside the area who are interested in the Amish who like to follow it. Yeah.
I see the paper is mostly black and white, and then there is color.
Mhm.
What's the arrangement with your printers and full color right through?
Mhm.
So this, how do you manage to have other pages black and white? Is there cost implication involved in that, or is it just one flat?
We have a one flat fee on our printing, whether it's black and white and color. They know we predominantly print black and white. So, because on the national, we could do on that page, on a 52 page, we could do all but 4 pages in 4 color if we wanted to with their press. But most of our content's black and white. So all the color in the national edition are ads, essentially. So those advertisers are paying a premium fee for the color. But any page except 4 in there can be 4 color. So it's only dictated on the advertiser, essentially. On our local edition, we're 4 color all the way through on that. Something we're doing with that too, I'll just quickly bring up. This again is our newspaper for our local community. It's in front of the national in the Holmes County market. But what we've seen, even general news stories with the Amish right now, after well, it happened to a lot of Americans, but after COVID, they seem a little bit more politically charged up about certain things. And we're seeing more and more, even just vanilla stories in the budget, a little bit. they seem like they don't like some of the things. If something's worded the right way, they think there's a political backing or something with it. When we're apolitical, there's no political at all. So this year we started a new section called Closer Look, and these are all like stories that are predominantly for the Amish community and our local edition, and more just good news. I mean, it's good news on this, but we felt this is going to be the Closer Look eventually will become our local edition, because we're a weekly, we're not doing breaking news. You know, everything's, you know, that the people that want breaking news are getting it online. The Amish aren't really as interested in some of this stuff. So our future of the local edition is going to be kind of like this. So again, we're always changing. We're always thinking, what is the community wanting? Because even on our local edition, we're 90% plus of our audience is Amish or conservative Mennonite. You know, they're not wanting to read about, not that we put it in, but about war or political items and things like that. They want to read about Just Plain Mom, which is a story about a weekly contributor from that talks about being a young mom and her 4 children, about, you know, things happening in the home. You know, they want to read about, you know, different pieces like that, you know, about hunting and things like that. They don't necessarily want to read what they would call worldly news items. So we understand what our audience wants, and we try to gravitate towards that, because if a lot of Amish too, you know, in Holmes County, they will get a daily paper. They'll get the news. Some of them will. They'll get the news of what's going on, you know, in the community, and we don't feel like we're necessarily that source to get, you know, news of what's happening in the ballot box, or, you know, who's running for primary.
Breaking news would you cover in the local edition?
Well,
Fires.
Correct. Fires, accidents. Let's say a new firehouse got approved and they're going to build a new firehouse. That impacts the community. New ambulance comes to town. You know, that affects everyone. You know, improvements at the hospital. Yeah, I mean, things that will affect their lives. You know, yeah. What we do on the local edition, we really take we go vanilla. Again, we're not going to put anything that's controversial that could affect someone. I mean, we're not gonna neutral down news, but we're not a breaking news, you know, paper. So we're going to put things that are relevant to our audience, but we're going to make sure we're not opinionated about it, what we're thinking about it. We're just reporting the facts. If there's something tragic happens in Holmes County, if there's a murder, we're going to report on it, but we're not going to put any opinions on it. This is what happened. This is the report, no commentary. And that's just how we do it, because there's 2 sides to every story, and we want the truth to be out there, but we're going to put the facts out there without commentary.
This is the national edition.
52 pages in May. I mean, when are the busiest times for you, and what's the biggest publication you've ever done?
Biggest we've ever done is 68 pages. And that was January of this year. We were 68 the first 2 issues. Why we're down to 52 and 56 is because I took the letting down by a half a point size, and I cut down our the space in between lines. I can't think of letting. Thank you. I took down that a little bit. That saved us about 4 pages a week. So we're trying to, and I did it on, again, try something once. You know, if you get pushback on it, we can change it back. We tried it 1 week. I got 1 complaint. I'm like, okay, let's try it a second week, see if we got any more complaints. I haven't had 1 more complaint since. It works, saves us 4 pages, saves me a few $100s a week, and it allows us to continue to add more scribes. So, you know, so those are the things that, you know, when I talk about, like, let's try something new. You know, we can always go back.
Page layout to my students, they instinctually want to put an empty line of space between each paragraph, because that's how it's done online. And they don't want to indent the first line of any paragraph, and they don't want to justify the text. And I show them that if you justify an indent and don't put spaces between, you're going to use 2/3 the space that you were using before. That's room for more content. And it just blows their minds. They don't think about it until they actually see it. If you're buying paper, you want to make sure you don't want it to be so crowded you can't read it. It has to be readable. But little things like that, you can get tremendous savings.
Yep. Another thing I would recommend, in here around our area anyway, we're the only newspaper that still runs a rate card. I firmly believe in a advertising rate card. I don't, it's so there's no sweetheart deals. This is the value we feel, for the space. We're actually very low price in our opinion for our circulation, but that way no customer can ever come to us. Oh, you're giving this person a deal, not me. I'm like, we're always on the rate card. Every customer we have, my salespeople know everyone's on the rate card where they belong, because we want to be fair to everyone. And that's our bottom line. We want to be an upright company, do the things the right way by, again, researching ads, making sure this is the sensibility of our audience. But we also want to be forthright to our advertisers. We don't want to take advantage of anyone, and we're not going to give sweetheart deals to anyone. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to do business. So
as soon as you cut a special deal to one person, the news is going to get out and your reputation is going to be, you're not,
Yeah.
The rate card is, this is to say, it's a fair deal.
Yeah.
We're fair dealers. We're not going to cheat. We're not going to skimp. We're not going to charge this person less than you. Everybody pays the same thing. If you don't like it, you don't have to advertise it.
exactly, that's what we say. And the thing is, if we charge less, we give someone a sweetheart deal, how much do we actually value our own product? If we're giving discounts, we're actually saying, no, that's what that's worth, because we're giving that to you. Now we're firm on we're probably the only ones in our geographic area that still use a rate card, but I firmly believe it. It might be old school, but it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. Any other questions?
We forgot to take a break. So why don't we get one more question and then we'll call it a day. We're not gonna call it a day until we get one.
Yes. I'll get you a copy. It's 27.7 pound. It's their standard newsprint that they carry, but 27.7. On our special tabs, I'll use a 35-pound bright white. Like this Horse Progress stays 35-pound bright white. So I'll pay a little bit of a premium on that. And we promote that when we do our sales as well. When we do a rate card, that we're doing a premium piece. It won't yellow as much. And some of those pieces we do typically have a longer shelf life. So we try to keep it looking nice for a while. People use them as keepsakes, but our standard print's 27.7 pound. I don't know. Yeah, I tell you, I'm just a firm believer in our press. They do such a tremendous job. I don't know what ink they use, but they're very good.
But it's soy-based.
It is, absolutely.
The layout inspiration, this makes me feel like I'm reading a Bible.
I'd like to make a comment about that. It feels, it's so inspired by the Bible. I think that's probably why it's so tangible and you really want to get stuck in.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a comment here.
Thank you. And even on that piece, I'll go a little bit into that. It's very little impact on our staff. I mean, they do all the typesetting on everything, which is a lot, don't get me wrong. But the layout design, I have someone in Pennsylvania that lays out that entire book at a nominal fee. So I don't even have my team do any of the pagination. They do it. I'll review it, send it to press, but all we do on that, I mean, I source some of the special content to make sure it's, good for the publication, but all our typesetters do is just, they have their templates and type. They don't have to, there's nothing special about that. It's such a simple process. And it's, even though advertising is very low in that, our margin on subscriptions, we're $34 a year on that. We do very, very, very well with that. It's a nice piece, and we never hear complaints that we're too expensive on it, because on average, that's one of our smallest ones. We're usually 168 pages. So, 168 pages, 12 times of the year for 34 in the United States. It's not a bad deal.
Sorry. So you mentioned very quickly offshoring agency you work with in India.
Right. So, it's very, for us, we had a good graphic designer, and she left to pursue other interests. She was young, couldn't find a good graphic designer. We do okay in-house, but it's just not our forte. So we work with a company based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a friend of mine, and they created this company in India, and it's actually it's their ministry. So they work with this It's a group of 30 individuals that they hire out there, and they take care of. They pay them better than the average wage in India, but they also kind of do it as like a ministry, you know, for Christianity through there. But we use them to do our design work, and ironically, that entire firm in India, I think it's 80 or 85 or 90% of their work is for Amish or Amish-based customers. So a lot of their customers are Amish who are needing to build a catalog or something. That's where that work goes. But so we have a full-time employee and then we have a part-time also helping us to do some typesetting when we're a little behind. But for us, it works because we can't find a graphic designer. They're tremendous. They master degree in graphic design. If they call off sick or if they're ill or they're on vacation, it's their responsibility to find a replacement. So we always have someone there to help us out do design, and it's a wonderful thing. And so that's really helped out tremendously. You know, when that's something we've started here a couple of years ago. So we always try to find different ways on how can we produce a better product, and because of, I mean, they do such good work. The last 3 years we've won first place in Ohio for best advertising design, and it's all because it's been done pretty much by this team. And in India, they've done a tremendous job. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, as usual, if you have follow-up questions for Milo, please send them to me, and then I will gather them.
I have one more.
Tomorrow morning's session is an online panel, so again, please be here by 9 a.m. And if you want money, stay put.
Good job, and I'm so amazed at what you do. So I was thinking of something because my boyfriend's grandparents are Mennonite.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I want to give to them.
Absolutely. I do not have any more. If someone leaves one, if not, give me your address. I'll mail you one. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can get you a paper. I have an extra paper, but I don't have everything else, but I'd be happy. Well, actually, I have a paper and a diary. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I think I would. Yes, it's M. Miller. Oh, thank you. M. Miller at thebudgetnewspaper.com. Where's my other diary? I'll even give you this. I forgot to bring this up. Correct. Here's the paper. Here's. Oh, I got this too.
You take it, you take it.
The only thing I don't have is the harmonica, which I could mail to you. So here's the diary. These were just my extra copy. And I'm going to give you this too, because I forgot to talk about this. We did a book. Hi.
Fascinated. You guys are doing such an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for
mind.
Thank you.
I'm just curious. All the people that are contributing, they're doing it completely free from themselves.
I did forget to mention
Yeah,
that. So
that was one of the things that I just wanted to find out, because obviously if they're writing, if they're mailing, there's a cost to that as well.
So what we do is we provide them a writing tablet for the letter, and we ask them to use that. We provide them envelopes with stamps.
Okay, well, so when you say a writing tablet, what do you mean?
So it would be here, like here. So it would be like almost like
okay.
Yeah. So we give them tablets, then they just rip it off and write.
So it's like a booking sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a receipt book.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
so we give them that, and they fill this information out. We provide them envelopes with pre-stamped,
Okay.
so they don't have to worry about mailing it to us, and we give them a free subscription to the budget.
Oh, so they get
So they get so they get the issue of the budget. That's their compensation.
Fantastic. So just mention it to Bill too, because I think it's a critical part.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Yeah, I
because that one is a true cost.